Everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome back, Planning Commissioners.
Mr. Micah?
Welcome to the January 14th, 2025 regular meeting of the City of Troy Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda for tonight's, are they not, is it not on?
It's not on. I don't think it's on yet. You and I could disagree about global warming. I just don't trust any politicians to fix it, or anyone. Both sides of the aisle.
Testing. I think we got it.
There you go.
It's on now? Okay. All right, we'll start again. Good evening and welcome to the January 14th, 2025 regular meeting of the City of Troy Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission.
State law establishes planning commissions. This planning commission is comprised of 9 residents appointed to serve our community. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. Other individuals participating in the meeting include representatives of the city's planning department, city attorney's office, and the city's planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates.
If you wish to address the Planning Commission, please come forward to the lectern when recognized and clearly print your name and address on the sign-in sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the Planning Commission and not anyone else in the room. If you have a cell phone or any other device that might disrupt this meeting, please either switch it to silent mode or turn it off. At this time, I ask the Planning Commission Recording Secretary, Kathy Zarnicki, to conduct the roll call.
Mr. Buechner?
Here.
Mr. Faison?
Here.
Mr. Fox?
Here.
Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Krent?
Here.
Mr. Lambert?
Here.
Ms. Malala-Holly?
Here.
Ms. Parakis?
Here.
Mr. Tagle? Quorum present, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next is the approval of tonight's agenda. Mr. Lambert?
Madam Chair, I believe we need to add one item to the agenda, and so I would move to approve the agenda with one change, and that is to election of officers. Probably would be item 7, I would assume, before public comment, and to move everything else down in order.
Before I get a second, Mr. Lambert, I'm going to ask, can we move it to number 8? We'll allow public comment first, and then
That's
we'll have
fine.
the election?
That's fine, so I'll make it number 8 then.
Okay. Do we have a second? Mr. Buechner. Any discussion? All right, we're ready for the roll call?
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Malala-Holly?
Yes.
Ms. Parakis?
Yes.
Mr. Buechner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the minutes from the November 26, 2024 meeting. Yep, Mr. Fox.
Motion to approve.
And second,
I support.
Mr. Faison. I guess, any discussion? All right, we're ready for the roll call?
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Malala-Holly?
Yes.
Ms. Parakis?
Yes.
Mr. Buechner?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to public comment for items that are not on the agenda tonight. If anyone's here to talk about anything that we're not going to cover tonight, please make your way to the lectern now. All right, we will move on then to our item 5, which is a special use approval and preliminary site plan review. Proposed residence in hotel, south side of Butterfield, east of Coolidge, 2125 and 2155 Butterfield, section 29, currently zoned Big Beaver zoning district. I think we're gonna have a presentation by Mr. Carlisle.
Yes, thank you. Tonight before you is a proposed hotel. It's located on Butterfield, which is located just south of Big Beaver. This is the 3rd time the Planning Commission has reviewed this project, so there's been a lot of history with this particular site. The site is Master Plan Big Beaver, and the site is also zoned Big Beaver Form-Based District, and the proposed development is a hotel, which does require a special use for the development. This was previously reviewed by the Planning Commission twice last year. It was postponed on November 26th for the following reasons. 1, to revise the design per discussion at the meeting. 2 was to revise the floor plans to show location of the proposed coffee shop. 3 was a comprehensive study or understanding of the parking situation, and 4 was a landscape plan stamped by a landscape architect. Since that meeting, the applicant has made significant revisions to the plans. The first change they made is they did change the architectural and roof design of the building that fronts on Butterfield. They added a more prominent and accessible access off Butterfield. They added a 24-hour coffee station and food beverage to-go station in the interior lobby. This is to both serve the hotel use, the surrounding office use, as well as the surrounding multifamily residential uses in the area. They clarified the parking figures to bring parking into compliance with regards to shared parking. They enhanced the outdoor patio space, and they have provided landscape architecture plans by a landscape architect. With regards to site layout, again, they spend a lot of time working on the patio location in front of Butterfield to provide that pedestrian feel that we'd like to see from the road. So within that patio area, the top picture is what was before. The bottom picture is the after. So they've added additional landscaping in there. They've added outdoor grills, portable movable heaters to put out in the inclement weather, as well as they added a cafe sign to attract passerbys to the location. They are seeking a waiver from the Planning Commission to set back the building 30 feet in order to put that patio space within that area. So again, this would be a Planning Commission approval as part of the site plan. So again, this is the more detailed view of that patio that would front on Butterfield to provide that pedestrian experience. With regards to parking, they did provide a parking study that will be confirmed by the city attorney. They are required a total of 456 spaces on the site. There are 461 on the site. However, we do know that 36 are on the hotel portion. But again, there's a shared parking agreement between the office use and the hotel use that would be agreed and approved by the city attorney. They made significant changes to the elevations, particularly that front end on Butterfield. The primary building materials are masonry, fiber cement siding, and brick. They have removed all the ephes that was shown on the previous elevations. They've enhanced that front facade that I spoke about on Butterfield. They provided more prominent access that off of Butterfield, as well as they've activated street activation by putting the coffee shop within a public walk-up from the street. So you can see this area in front, they made significant changes in this front. If you remember before, it was multiple roof variations on this front end. So it's a flat roof with some prominent features at the corner. That's a significant enhancement, as well as they've bumped out the entrance so it's much more visible from Butterfield. And this is the vehicular and drop-off area for the hotel users. So it's a much more impressive feature from Butterfield than what was previously reviewed by the Planning Commission. This is an enhanced rendering of the entrance, enhanced entrance off of Butterfield. So in summary, we are asking the Planning Commission to consider the special use standards in Section 903, the site plan review standards in Section 806, the approval of a shared parking agreement to be reviewed and approved by the city attorney, compliance with the Big Beaver standards in Section 5.04, and lastly, a consideration of the 30-foot setback and outdoor seating along Butterfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. Does anyone have any questions for the planning department? Mr. Lambert?
And Mr. Savin might be the one that has to answer this question, but the cafe sign on the front of the building, does that need to be approved by the Building Code Board of Appeals?
So the Planning Commission does not have the authority to review and approve signage. That sign was shown conceptually to illustrate that they propose a sign. It'll have to meet sign ordinance requirements. That's reviewed and approved administratively.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Madam Chair, actually, if I may,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify something. I know Mr. Carlisle represented a shared parking agreement. The report says that it was submitted. I have not seen it. It's not come across my desk, and I didn't see it in the packet. So I just want to Planning Commission know I have not seen that or reviewed that agreement yet.
Okay, thank you. All right, I guess we'll invite the applicant back up, or up in this year. Welcome back.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. All right, so yeah, as as Ben spoke regarding all the changes we made, so we hope we got it right this time. So we spent a lot of time just trying to revamp it, obviously based on our last meeting, a lot of the comments you all provided. So I think we're pretty excited with this version here, so.
Can I ask you about the parking agreement? Has one been sent to our?
It should have, yeah, it should have been submitted.
Mr.
Yeah.
Savana just told me it was submitted at the last packet. I didn't go back and look at the last packet, but it wasn't in this packet, so I haven't seen it. It wasn't forwarded to me directly, so.
I see, okay. Well, can I ask you, Mr. Dufresne, so if, like, how does this work in terms of, are we able to pass a resolution contingent on a parking agreement that you approve, or do we need to wait?
No, you can do it, as long as the board is comfortable, you can do it contingent upon review
Okay.
and approval by city attorney's office, yeah.
Okay, all right, so let's open it up to questions for the applicant. We've got him up here. Or comments, or, yep, Mr. Lambert.
Well, first, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I think you've made incredible improvements. I'm sure city staff and Mr. Carlisle or his assistants gave you a lot of input on that. Two questions, and it's more or less just suggestions or comments. One, the lanterns that you have out in front, are those going to be conventional electric, or have you thought about maybe gas lanterns would really make it stand out really nice?
What are we
That's your decision.
proposing? Is it gas or electric for those heaters? Electric. Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah,
I know
and now they have
gas
like a lot of different electric ones that almost give that look of a gas, yeah.
And second is the one comment on the cafe sign, and as Mr. Savin said, apparently it will be approved administratively. I think it would be more appropriate for pedestrians if that cafe sign was maybe lower, maybe closer to the street so that pedestrians would see it a little easier, but like I said, that's between you and his staff. And one question I have is the outdoor grill, is that a permanent feature then to be built there?
It is.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Cron?
Yeah, I like it. I think you did a terrific job. The architect did a fabulous job of making it a very prominent and exquisite solution. I think it's just phenomenal. You were in charge of the Elevate project?
Correct, yeah.
And this takes on that same elegant air, so.
It does.
you
We
know,
tried our best to kind of get it as close as we can to Elevate with still being in the,
Oh, yeah, I understand
guidelines
you-
of Marriott, so,
Marriott,
yeah.
right, I understand. And the idea of having that canopy coming out, that makes your entrance very prominent. I like it. I like everything about it. I think you've done a phenomenal job.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Malala Holly?
I am going to say the same. These color renditions did it for me. And it is a much better presentation than what we saw. The patio of the previous presentation to this one, this is so nicely done.
Sure.
I believe the wall for that patio is still going to be at knee height, correct? There is no change in the wall height.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
The only two things that I noticed, aside from this beautiful presentation, is one, I think I did not observe this last time, but this time I did. The entrance to your Residence Inn is directly opposite the delivery truck entrance for the building that is sitting on the property, correct?
Correct. I think actually we.
Just a little, it is offset a
altered
little bit.
The delivery entrance for the office building next door.
It's cockeyed a little bit. There is a green space there that we'll probably end up planting as well.
Yeah, something to shield that from the entrance.
And I think the current owner of the office building, they have some plans for landscaping
Okay.
that I think their plan is to kind of cover that area because it's not very good looking, yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yep.
correct.
And I think there's like a transformer there, so they plan on covering a lot of that.
Okay, that'll at least add a little bit more green and, yeah, cover that up.
Agreed.
My other comment is, there is on page 7 of your presentation, a particular, and I don't know if you can pull that up, Mr. Savdant or Mr. Carlisle, page 7 of the applicant's packet.
Of the agenda?
Yes, agenda packet, but of the applicant's portion. So that would be 33. Yes, thank you very much. The image to the extreme right, I know this is just some images that you have put together in order to go with the statement that you have below these images, but my eye caught how beautiful this particular space is and how open, green, friendly, accessible, walkable, sitting space, moving space, gathering space this is. Is there any way you can break your patio to look a little bit?
Well, that part's a little tough, but we are adding a lot of these, the green elements that you see there. Obviously this was just a image that we found, but we plan on putting a lot of landscaping around there, and a lot of those wood elements, that's what we anticipate for seating.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is going to bring in that element of sustainability.
Correct, and that look, you're absolutely right, that look does go very well with what we have here. So our plan is a lot of like the furniture that's outside, we'll have those natural elements.
Yes.
Like the teak and the greenery as well.
Yes. That subtle lighting that you have there. I mean, this image caught my eye, and I said, this can be so easily replicated into the outdoor space that you are creating.
It's a good-looking image. Maybe the angles, we'll probably have a tough time, as you see, like it's kind of long and tall.
Yes.
But definitely those two elements you will see in the patio.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, wonderful, good to know. Thank you very much.
But before we move off the picture, I'd like to say something.
Sure.
Because one of the things I wrote down is the lanterns that you guys have out front, for me, don't go with your building at all. That lantern light it's much more modern and goes with it.
The ones that we put in the image, I'm sure we're going to go through different variations of it, but you're right. The ones I think in our images kind of have more of an older look to them.
Like an antique.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So
No, I agree.
I would like for those to change.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Fox.
So yeah, to echo a lot of past comments, really like the redesign. I think it looks a lot better than the first couple of versions that we saw. My question's about the cafe, which thank you again for getting that included following our feedback. So is the intention that that'll be run, are you going to get like a third-party cafe to come in and be the kind of owner or manager of that, or is that going to be hotel staff?
We haven't made a decision. It all depends. If it's a certain brand, more than likely, it'd probably be,
Sure.
separately run. But if not, if we can't find the right fit, then it will be operated by our hotel staff. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right, and I'm going to jump in again because it's on that point about the 24-hour, the cafe, I noticed it was 24 hours open. I mean, is that something that has to get approved by the city, or they're allowed to just have something open 24 hours?
I think it will be 24-hour, more grab and go.
Yep.
But staff-wise, there will be a certain amount of hours limited to as far as where staff will be there.
Okay.
But 24 hours meaning like somebody can come grab and go prepared foods or something like that. So.
Okay.
Yep.
So I like that. I think you guys did a tremendous job listening to the feedback and then coming back and listening to our deliberations and then coming back with this huge improvement. I do have a couple of questions and comments. I do love how the sign brings people, I think you're going to bring in that pedestrian traffic because it's now much more inviting. I would like you to consider, though, putting in, I don't know if the word is an awning, but you have that entrance come out for the Butterfield, the internal entrance, the main entrance of the hotel. I'd like to see something. It can be much smaller scale, but something even with like those bars that come down to hold something, because still I had to look at the floor plan to know that you were having an entrance there because it just looks like glass. It's not very clear. So would you consider doing something?
You mean just more of like they call them like a false kind of canopy, or just it kind of sticks out a little bit?
Yeah,
it's more probably aesthetic. I'm sure we can look into
Just
that.
to identify, because one of the requirements is that there's an entrance on Butterfield, and I still don't feel like it's prominent enough.
Sure.
Also, are you going to consider putting some sort of shades or umbrellas in that patio area?
Yeah, probably the patio seating will have umbrellas of some sort.
Okay.
Yep.
Then when there's I did put page 46, we do the count for the cars, and I only showed 95 spots out of the 121. So I was wondering where those other 26 spots are going to be.
This is,
So page 46 of the agenda packet, it has little numbers and it'll say.
I see it.
You see it?
Yep. And I'm sorry, you were saying you counted,
95?
okay. Scott? For parking, she's asking?
They're shared spots out to the,
So in
Up to
other
the-
words, when I saw it say 36 on-site, 85 on office, I was happy to see that with this image, there were 95, because the 95 here seemed to go along with the hotel. So really, it's only, so the 26 are going to be more on the office side, is what you're saying? Yeah, go ahead.
The difference is in numbers because this is an architectural site plan. The actual civil site plan that we got has a different shared parking division line.
Oh,
So
I see, it's more, a little bit more
It's actually
west.
incorporates this area as well. And so that's why, and the architectural shows this as the divine line, and really it's, the civil shows this. But in totality, the number of parking spaces is 461 shared between both sites.
Okay, so in other words, if you move the line a little bit to the
That's
west,
what
you're
the
going to pick
reduction
up
to 20
26.
spaces or so you talked about.
Okay, all right, and then two more things. Can we put a picture of the east elevation? There's one more that's really shows the east elevation.
Rendering or a,
It's like the
Plan drawing.
rendering. I wish I had put the page number for that. Because basically there is a huge wall, and I think we talked about it before, and I still
that
didn't
it?
see, I mean, okay,
That's it?
and that's it. There was an area that I was hoping, maybe it's not the rendering, maybe it's the one where it's the drawing, but there's a huge area where there are no windows.
I think that came up before, but the windows, you can see them there, and there might be a better picture of
Yeah, I
it.
think we
That's
have,
the pool, though. Like,
there's actually more windows there as well. I know those trees are kind of covering it, but right behind those 3 trees up front, you'll see windows right in the back of it. There as well as
Yeah, for sure
further
there.
to the south.
I guess I wondered for
between the two.
the mechanical room and the laundry room and the housekeeping room, those rooms seemed to be a solid wall when I looked at the floor plan. And I thought maybe if you could add some windows up top just to let some natural light in, and it also breaks up that solid wall.
we could do that.
You can do that.
That's a mechanical space.
I'm just pulling it up here. Okay, I see it. I see it.
You see what
Yeah.
I'm talking about? It's still a solid wall, and I think it's nice to let natural light in. If that's the laundry room for the residents, I mean, it would be nice to add a few windows
Sure,
there.
yeah, we can even put some nice lighting up top.
Up
I mean,
top.
I'm sorry, windows up top, yeah.
Yep, okay. And then the last thing is going to be about the parking agreement. I guess it's a question to both you and the attorney, but I'd like to know what would happen if and when the office is sold, to make sure that the parking agreement would bind the new owner to that parking agreement. I think that would be, I think it would be contingent on the resolution that be part of the parking agreement, if that's possible. And, or I guess they could offer for the residents in to purchase at that time the parking, but somehow they have to maintain the parking number, the number of parking spots. So if it were ever to go for sale, that you'd have the option to purchase parking if needed. And then I was also wondering whether that cafe created a parking requirement, and did we account for it yet? Maybe that's something for the building department, but.
We've considered the coffee shop as an accessory component to the use of the primary use of the hotel, so it did not require additional parking. We think that the hope is it'll be more pedestrian oriented for people that come in off-site, so we didn't require additional parking as part of the hotel use.
Okay.
Did you want me to answer your question about the parking agreement?
please.
Typically, those agreements, the ones that I've reviewed, they have language in there about successors and assigns who would be successor to. So I imagine there should be, not having reviewed it, but I'm sure there's language in there about that. That agreement will get recorded, so any future owners will be on notice that there is a shared parking agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, does anyone else have questions for the applicant? Mr. Faison?
Yeah, I agree with the comments about the improvement in this plan versus what we've seen before. I just have a question on the patio. And I think you touched on it. So is that essentially public space, that patio?
It is. I mean, pedestrians walking by and, you know, they want to sit, go inside, grab a coffee, come back, sit outside. I mean, they definitely can.
And what about the grill and the heaters and the other amenities? I mean, is your expectation
Right.
that pedestrians or passers-by
No,
will
that's going to
sit-
be probably more hotel guests, because, you know, it's extended stay, you know, there's kitchenettes in there, they want to grocery shop, they're there for, you know, a month or so, they want to go outside and grill. It's going to be more geared towards hotel users.
I think intuitively I would expect that, but it's open and accessible to anyone, right?
Technically, but I mean, I don't think we'll have somebody just kind of walking by wanting to grill something as they
With food,
like.
they come and grill.
Yeah,
Right,
well,
right.
I see where you could see that, yeah.
And then the other question, again, it's along the same lines. In terms of time of day, is it going to shut down at any point, that patio?
You know, probably the fire or the features definitely will. But if it's a nice night, somebody wants to sit out there, like hotel guests during the summer, you know, those fire pits will be on probably till a certain time in the evenings, you know, weather is nice, so, yeah.
Okay. And then the grab and go.
Yes.
Is that going to be like a manned shop, or is that a situation where you grab something and you scan it and you pay with a credit
It
card?
will actually be manned during certain hours, and then in the evenings, it will just be grab and go. So if you have hotel guests come in, they want to grab a drink before they go upstairs or a sandwich or something, it will be more grab and go. And that'll be unmanned more than likely 24 hours a day, so.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Anyone else?
I could do a resolution if you want.
I have one question. Did you reduce the number of units from the last time? Or no?
Don't think
No,
so.
okay.
No?
Okay, I
Yeah,
was just
same
curious.
thing, 116, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Krant, if you're
Yeah,
ready.
before I read the resolution, it says the planning commission has determined that the parking reduction proposed, would we reduce the parking? I don't think that's. Shared parking. Yeah, so that first whereas is not relevant. Am I on the wrong page? I'm on page 7, is that the old one? Page 7 of the packet?
I've got the same one.
Okay.
Wait, is,
It shows 7 out of 108
Okay,
pages.
you're right, sorry, it is that one, sorry.
Parking reduction.
It's an old resolution because at one point there was a parking reduction
Okay,
and we had to clarify the amount of parking in the office.
okay, so we just negate that whereas.
Parking, shared parking.
Okay. All right. Special use approval and preliminary site plan review, SUJPLN 2024-0021, proposed residence inn hotel, south side of Butterfield, east of Coolidge, 2125 and 2155 Butterfield, section 29, currently zone BB, Big Beaver zoning district. Whereas, in accordance with Article 9.02 of the zoning ordinance, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on this matter on October 22nd, 2024, and public comments were received and considered. And whereas the Planning Commission reviewed the special use standards set forth in Section 9.03 and found that those standards have been met, and resolved that the special use approval and preliminary site plan approval for the proposed Residence Inn Hotel, south side of Big Beaver, east of Coolidge, 2125 and 2155 Butterfield, section 29, currently zoned BB, Big Beaver District, be granted subject to the following conditions. Number 1, a shared parking agreement to be reviewed and approved by city attorney prior to final plan approval. Now, do we want to include the addition of some kind of canopy that faces, that provides the identification to the entrance on Butterfield.
I would like to see that.
Okay, I'll put that in there then.
Thank you.
Were there any other additions?
The 30-foot
Windows?
front setback,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yes, we allow for that 30-foot
30-foot front setback.
foot setback.
And then
That-
windows?
We waived it's a waiver, is that what it is? We waived the 30-foot setback requirement.
Additional windows on the.
It's just
east
simply,
yeah.
it's simply approving the placement of the building in the patio. It's kind of inferred that you're, by approving the site plan.
Okay. And then some additional windows on the east side of the building where we just have a solid masonry wall. Any other?
There was one other comment about whether the applicant would consider a modern design for the patio lights.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And, yes, have the patio lights reflect more of the modern look of the building. Okay?
Do we have a second? Mr. Biekner? Any discussion? All right, we're ready for the roll call.
Mr. Hudson?
We appreciate it's taken 2 or 3
Yes,
sessions
it has, yeah.
to get to this point, but your willingness to do that is impressive, and it's a beautiful project, and I vote yes.
Mr. Krantz?
Yes?
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Malala Holly?
yes?
Ms. Parakis?
Yes.
Mr. Biekner?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Congratulations.
Thanks for hanging in there with us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so we are going to move on to preliminary site plan review, SUJPLN 2024-0030, proposed Oak Meadows site condominium, 10 units, south of Ottawa, north of Square Lake, west of Rochester, 400 and 500 Ottawa, Section 3, currently zoned R1B, which is one family residential district. And I believe Mr. Carlisle has a presentation for us.
Yes, thank you. So, a little background. The site is located at 400 and 500 Ottawa Drive. It's outlined in red. It's 3 parcels. The subject site is a total of about 7.8 acres and is currently encumbered by tree covers and wetlands. The property is bounded to the north, east, and west and south by single-family homes, and the subject site is zoned R1B, which is single-family residential. The site is has that little red star in the middle of it. It's, again, surrounded by all R1B zoning and all single-family homes. The site has been in front of this planning commission before. In 2018, the same applicant submitted an application to construct a 16-unit site cluster condominium development. Essentially what that means is in exchange for more open space, common open space in the development, you increase the number of allowable units. So the number at that time was proposed was 16. In August of 2018, the planning commission on a vote, I believe it was 7-1, recommended approval to the city council. However, the project was never scheduled for the city council consideration and no action was taken, and that application was pulled by the applicant. In 2024, the applicant resubmitted a site plan for consideration. The development is in front of you. It includes 10 single-family homes. This includes 9 new homes and 1 existing home, which will be retained. I do want to note that where they're proposing to put that new access road, there is a house there, so it'll be a net increase of 8 houses in total of the development. Again, the condo development will be access of a new private road off Ottawa Drive, and to create that new private road, there will be one, as I noted, 1 existing house removed on Ottawa Drive and turned into a road right-of-way. We do note that the proposed R1B lots all meet the required standards. This is a by right approval, so approval or denial of this application is done by the Planning Commission. You do not recommend this to the City Council. It's a determination of this Planning Commission. Again, it's by right. It does not require any special approvals or any variances from this board. As I noted, there are wetlands on site. Eagle has identified through a wetland delineation 5 wetlands on site. The largest one is regulated wetland A, It's approximately 0.25 acres in total. The other 4 wetlands total or average anywhere between 0.01 to 0.1 acres. So of the 0.29 total acreage of wetland on site, one of them is 0.25. Eagle is the body that regulates wetlands in this jurisdiction. So if this does get approved, it would have to go to Eagle for a wetland permit prior to any sort of final engineering approval on behalf of the city. Again, the city has no jurisdiction over these regulated wetlands. The applicant does propose a stormwater facility, which would be located on the southern end of the site, just south of Lot 7. It is going to be located adjacent or just north of the floodplain. We do note that the site is located and it is outside of the 100-year floodplain. Any sort of stormwater management plan and potentially any impact on the floodplain would all be reviewed by engineering as part of the final engineering plan. The applicant identified 105 regulated trees on site. Of those 105, they are removing 88 trees and preserving 17 trees. As required by the ordinance, they are replacing the mitigated trees on site with 198 inches of required replacement. So all those trees you see kind of in the rear yards as well as along the new road, those are all mitigated replacement trees as required by the zoning ordinance. The applicant is proposing a sidewalk interior to the development. We do note there is no sidewalk on Ottawa. However, they are proposing an interior sidewalk within the development. We note that the sidewalk is outlined in yellow. It does not continue up the west side of the proposed new private road. So we are recommending that if this project is approved, that sidewalk continue all the way up to Ottawa just to continue that loop within the system. One of the questions that's come up often with this development or any residential development, especially within an existing neighborhood, is impact of traffic. This was reviewed by OHM, who is the city traffic engineering consultant. They do note that during peak morning trips, it'll be about 9 trips per hour at the peak. In the afternoon peak would be 11 trips per hour. So in total, they do note it'd be approximately 121 trips per day to this particular development. Their conclusion of part of the traffic review was that the traffic generated by the proposed development is minimal, adding less than a dozen vehicle trips during the peak busiest hour. The traffic impact on the site would be in the adjacent road network is negligible, and users would be imperceptible to the majority of the road users. The applicant has provided 2 housing elevations, Troywood and Vanderpool, the names of the types of housing types. They're very similar to each other. There's little architectural differences between the two. So we do ask that the applicant provide verification about how they are distinguishing the architectural characteristics of the proposed homes in the subdivision. We do note that site plans are required to meet the standards set forth in 8.06. The first one is the development shall ensure compatibility to existing commercial districts and provide a transition land use. The development shall incorporate the recognized best architectural building practices. And third, it shall enhance the character and environment and pedestrian for safety for pedestrian and motorists. So we are asking the Planning Commission to consider if all site plan standards have been met. And if the Planning Commission does approve the preliminary site plan, we recommend that they revise the plan to reflect the accurate parcel numbers. Just the parcel numbers on the sheets were not accurate to the actual parcel numbers. It's a minor issue. Second is continue the sidewalk along the internal side of the road. And lastly, clarify the architectural variations used. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Carlisle? Mr. Fox?
I guess, so these are, I guess, could you just explain how this is ending up in front of us? Because if this is by right, there's single-family homes being built in a single-family district. I guess I'm having trouble understanding why we need to hold a hearing and a vote. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, we don't do every single-family house in the city as it's built. What is different about?
So, you have the jurisdiction over site plans, and this is a site condominium that falls under the site plan regulations. It is not a public hearing. I'm assuming the Planning Commission will listen to public comment tonight.
Sure.
It's not a public hearing,
okay.
But as a Planning Commission, you have the jurisdiction to approve site condominiums, which this is a site condominium of 10 lots.
So then I guess my follow-up question, if this applicant had come with one of these homes, and then a year later came with one of them, and then a year later came with one of them, would that have to come in front of us? Sorry, I'm just trying to find where the line is.
There's land division. If you meet certain land divisions, it's an administrative function.
Okay.
Under Michigan law, there's only so many land divisions you can get within a certain period of time. This exceeds that requirement to do it by a split, so they're doing it through site condominium. Site condominiums have to comply with the minimum lot standards of that zoning district, which this does, but that still is, the site condominium and site plan is essentially under the purview of the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Malala
Mr. Carlisle, can you put up that image or that slide of the previous approval that this applicant had received? Okay.
It wasn't an approval. It was a recommendation of approval 7-1 by Planning Commission. It never went forward to City Council, so it was never approved.
Okay, thanks. Stand corrected on that. On that, what do we see in front of 4, 5, and 6 homes? Is that a detention pond there?
Yes. So essentially, it's the same outline except for the new one has lot 7 down here. The stormwater that is now proposed off camera here, off screen, is down in this location. So yes, this was the proposed detention pond at the time when this was submitted in 18.
So is the current plan and where the detention pond is being located, is that a better plan compared to this location?
I would assume that the engineer, that they have a licensed engineer that stamped the plans, and that's the location they chose. So I assume that would be, based on the current layout, that's a better location than what was shown here, but it's up to the determination of the engineer.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lambert?
Yeah, I've got 3 questions, but I'll let my colleagues get some questions in between. The green, or the wetlands that are on the property, Eagle generally requires that be mitigated if it's approved. Is that correct?
Yeah, they typically require, it depends on the quality of the wetland, the type of wetland, the size of the wetland, location. There's a lot of variables that they consider. But yes, if it's a regulated wetland and it is required to be mitigated, there's a couple avenues that the applicant could mitigate. Typically, they want to do it within the same watershed, and there's some locations that they can do it. But it would be typically required to be mitigated based on whatever the required standard is.
Would it be in order for us to ask the applicant when he comes up whether those could be mitigated within the city limits of Troy?
We could certainly ask that. It really is, again, is up to the jurisdiction of Eagle. I think that could be something that we could encourage the applicant to pursue that with Eagle, is in terms of where that location of mitigation would be. Again, if this is approved, it's certainly something that we could ask the applicant to follow up with Eagle about.
The other question is about the sidewalk. We all like sidewalks because they promote safety, but one of the unique situations about this development is it's going and connecting to a subdivision that has no sidewalks. What is the city requirements as far as sidewalk? Can we say, because of the unique situation, we'll only require one sidewalk, or can we say no sidewalks? Or
you have the right to waive the sidewalk provision there but I would so the requirement is sidewalks on both sides of the road. That's the city standard. You have the ability to waive the sidewalk location. I would advise, though, that if you do waive it, there should be some legitimate governmental reason behind it: saving trees, better safety design, etc. It shouldn't be just simply there's no reason for a sidewalk on that side of the road. There should be some legitimate governmental purpose behind it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Faison?
Do we typically require 3D and color renderings for an application like this?
We typically do for most site plans. We have not in the past required 3D for a site condominium of single family. It certainly is in the purview of the Planning Commission to request that if this does get postponed or for whatever reason, but we had not required it for a 10-lot subdivision or site condominium in the past.
Okay.
But Mr., to answer your question, if it helps you better address standards and recognize what needs to be met, it certainly is a request the Planning Commission could seek.
That's why I asked the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question, and maybe I'm just reading it wrong, but on page 80 of our packet, we give the setbacks. So the front, the side, the rear. The rear says required 45, says provided 40, says complies. I was thinking about it the other way, like shouldn't it be bigger, a bigger setback? And that fact that it's smaller means it doesn't comply, or am I thinking of it the wrong way? The reason I was thinking about it, I'll be honest, I was thinking about it because when I saw one of those pictures up there, I was thinking about having room for porches or patios in the back, and then I went to check the setback, and I wasn't sure that it complied. Or am I reading it wrong?
So you read it right, but maybe a typo, we can confirm that.
Okay.
I have big typos.
I'm not trying to call you out. I literally just noticed it now when we were looking at it, because I was looking at this image, and this is what caught my attention, not big backyards. And I know we've had issues in the past, or at least it predated me, but I remember something about issues in the past where there wasn't enough room for patios and...
It is 45. Let me check the plans to make sure they're 45, but the required setback is 45, rear yard setback.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question for the planning department? Mr. Lambert?
Well, since I let my colleagues ask some questions, this is the third one I have. And I don't know if this might go to Ms. Dufresne or Mr. Savant, but we just got some emails placed in front of us tonight, and one of them questioned whether or not this development had a problem because it might violate the Michigan Land Division Act. But the fact that it's a site condominium waives that requirement as far as what they are stating, that it's combining properties from two different subdivisions?
Right, so that's my understanding, my basic understanding of the Michigan Land Division Act, that the site plan is going to override that. In addition, Mr. Ebethera has plenty of experience working with our assessing department. Our assessing department, Kelly Tim and Kim Harper, are the ones in charge of lot splits and lot combinations. I imagine that Gary has had conversations with them. If they had an issue, I imagine that they would have brought that to Gary's attention. We can ask Gary about whether he's had those conversations, but...
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Keller.
I went and looked. It was a typo. It's 45 feet required and 45 feet is provided.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have questions, or should we ask the applicant up? All right, Mr. Ebethera, would you like to come on up?
Good evening. Thank you for having me here today.
Yep.
Brent did a very good job, Brent and Bren. I'm just going to go off of everything they did. I have just a few comments I'd like to add to it. Is when I was here in 2018, we had 6 or 7 issues that we talked about. One of them was density. And we'd passed 16, and now I'm back with 10, so I've lowered the density by 40%. Another thing we had was traffic. Traffic with less density is even less traffic than we had before. Land division, someone asked that, yes. My attorneys, my engineers, it all can be land divided into the subdivision, into the lots that we need them to be. A couple of the bigger things was the wetland. 6 years ago when I was here, there was no wetlands. We had a letter from a wetland specialist. Since then, the wetlands have gotten there, so we had called a WIP, which the Eagle comes out and he do a wetland investigation plan, and he put it all up and sent into the engineering department has it. I think Brent might have it and set out there. And that's where all those lines are, and those are good for 3 years. They're saying there's no other wetlands on that property except that. We are now in for a process of transferring the wetlands to another area. It's called a land bank. So you buy credits in another wetland area, and these wetlands go into it. So you don't create new wetlands because you have to maintain them for 10 years. So you buy into a bank of wetlands.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
Where would, is that on this property?
No, I have no idea where Eagle does it. They said it's somewhere in our same watershed. There's actually farms of wetlands that they transfer, and it happens in projects all over the place. And it's just wetland credits, you sign them and you send them off there, and they create them, maintain them, and keep wetlands there. I've asked the same question, can I do it on my own property? But you have to maintain it for 10 or 15 years to make sure that the wetland plants grow, the ground is good, and if it's not, you're constantly replenishing it. So Eagle just wants you to buy into the land bank, and it's gone. The next one was flooding. You know, the neighbors talk about flooding all the time in here. I've yet to see a new subdivision that floods when it rains. We are not putting any of our groundwater on any neighboring property. Our property is actually 10 feet lower than the existing neighborhood's properties. The elevation keeps going down. Our retention pond, as you can see, is close to the river there. That empties out into that. So basically, when it rains, all our water goes into a storm system. Storm system goes into the retention pond in a, like, say, a 2-foot pipe, and it reduces to a 4-inch pipe when it comes back out. So it stores all the rainwater that we have. And subdivisions are made like that since 1974. They have retention ponds, and they keep getting bigger and bigger. They have a 10-year flood, then they have a 100-year flood, and they keep getting bigger, and it's all based off of Oakland County, how big you have to make your ponds. But flooding in the other areas, those houses were built in 1950. They did not have retention ponds. They didn't have underground drains. They have ditches and culverts, and the water was made to run from the house into the ditch and drain away. The good news is the city engineer is talking with my engineer and with the city about running a pipe from my retention pond through the sub out to Ottawa to help relieve flooding out there. So that's a good thing for the people out there, is there could be a big catch basin to catch water so it doesn't just lay there. That's just the City of Troy engineer talked with City Council, put a memo to them about installing a pipe in there to help reduce the flooding. The other question I have is setbacks. If you can go to that page, Brent, I'm sorry, where it's at. Right there, 45 foot, and those blue boxes are the box that I can build in. If I wanted to build line to lot line, elevate, you could fit them in that area there. But those are just showing you how big of an area you can build, and they're not, the houses won't go all the way in that blue area, they'll be smaller. One thing I didn't mention about density is, we took it from 16 units to 10 units. And I listened to the neighbors 6 years ago talk that the lots were too small, the houses were too small. Ottawa is bigger lots with bigger houses. So now we have bigger lots because we reduced it. 40% smaller, so we almost took 2 lots to make 1 lot out of. So we do listen to the neighbors. And I've been up here for years, and I always listen to the neighbors when I do something, and they're not always happy with the end product, but I do listen to what they want and make changes like that. That's pretty much everything I have here. Is there any questions you guys have?
Yep. Mr. Fox?
What are your thoughts on the sidewalk that came up?
That definitely needs to be a sidewalk on both sides of the road.
Say that again, sir?
It needs to be on both sides all the way up. I don't know how that was missed, but sidewalks have to go to both sides of Ottawa.
So if we included that in the approval? you're gonna include-
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
The other question was brought up was the elevations. Each of those houses we have multiple elevations for, so we have to match what the building department can't have the same house every 3 houses. We have different elevations. Plus, we also could possibly build whatever people want on some of the other lots. Maybe if someone wants a ranch, we're going to build a ranch in there. So I'm always open to building ranches.
Mr. Faison?
Are those the materials?
Yes. Do you want me to stand those up, or?
Yeah.
We have, the typical shingle, the siding, and then bricks. We have brick on the whole first floor of the entire house, and then siding on the second floor, and then whatever color trim we'll put in there.
And then you have multiple colored shingles or multiple
Multiple
colors
color
of
shingles, brick, and siding. So we have multiple colors. When the people come to pick them out, they pick out whatever color. We do not like to keep the same house with the same color next to each other.
And you can't, you mentioned.
You can't,
that, right?
yes.
Okay.
Mr. Fox?
Well, so I guess in a way that kind of addresses the rendering question that came up. The reason you can't provide renderings is because you don't know what the people who purchase the homes are going to want the homes to look like.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
But we do have the architectural drawings of the, so we have a basic idea of what they look like. What's your price point on these?
These are going to be about $975.
And what's the square footage? I know the footprint was 14.
4,000, 4,200.
I thought I saw that the footprint was 1,400 square feet.
No.
Floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't get to 4,000 from that.
It shows 1,400 on the first floor.
Yeah, I was under the impression these were much smaller homes.
Again, that's a table, that's the minimum requirement for this district. They've met the minimum requirement. That doesn't mean that's what the house size is going to be.
Minimum size in R1B is 1,400.
Right.
There's no maximum size.
So all that means in the table is that they met the minimum size requirement.
Okay. So you're looking at 4,000 square foot homes that are around 975.
Mind you, 975 is not a high-priced home in Troy anymore. Just to get a building permit, you spend $20,000 to get a building permit before you ever start.
Yeah, Ms. Malala Holly.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
The first one is, in our packet under natural resources, it is mentioned that while reviewing topography, and this is on page 79, by the way, of our packet, under natural resources topography, it says, while reviewing topography, we noted inconsistent parcel numbers. The parcel ending in 029 on the site plan application is shown as 012 on sheet P-1.1, and then shown as 20 on sheet P-1.2. So there is an inconsistency there. Did you get a chance to correct that?
First I heard about it is when Ben was talking about it just now.
Okay.
But yes, it will definitely be corrected to have the right parcel numbers on there.
Okay. My second question is more on the observation of the site area. I frequently bike in that area. I'm very familiar with Ottawa Drive. And when I saw this, although I'm not opposed to having a condo built in that area, but what I was thinking is, here is Donaldson going this way, and Ottawa Drive, which comes out this way. There's going to be one house there in that corner, and then your proposed road into your development. If you actually look at it, it is a subdivision within a subdivision that is getting built in some ways. And the second thing is, that particular house sitting in the corner of Donaldson, who were part of this homes and felt more like they are part of a subdivision or an area of homes, now are just left by themselves. I don't know. I don't know what how that came to be, but I'm a little I'm unsure about how that is going to look and how that neighborhood is going to feel, to have a neighborhood within a neighborhood. Although we want, I mean, you have reduced the density, which is a great thing, and it's nice. It's not going to be a congested space. I agree with all of those good points that you brought, but it's not sitting in my head to see one house in that corner and then another road. So there's a road here. There's a road going to be happening here. There's so much of privacy lost in that area, for that house too. So what are your thoughts on that?
So you keep saying a subdivision in a subdivision. Basically, every road in a subdivision is a subdivision in a subdivision. This is a R1B zoning with R1B homes going in it. So I'm not understanding the subdivision in a subdivision, but roads going out into there and creating more lots happens in the city more than you know. Just down the street on Ottawa, closer to Rochester Road, I think it's called Peacock Farms. Same thing, they tore a house down and put a road in it, and you ride your bike down it, does it look out of place? You can pull it up on the big overhead map and see that. It's on the north side of the road.
Yes, I am familiar with what you're talking about. but
Okay, so there's, once again, houses that were house, and now there's a road in it. You don't even think about it. There's one over by Athens Park, same thing. Subdivision I live in, I tore down 2 houses and put a road in, put 12 houses in there. So it happens more than you think. That's just 3 that I can think off the top of my head right now.
I'm just going to ask you a very vague question, which I thought initially I won't ask, but I'm just going to ask you.
Okay.
This possibility of an entrance to this 10-unit condo complex that you're trying to build couldn't have happened from the Square Lake side?
No. There's not, the people that have the property next to it will not sell the property. And you could have come off Ottawa further to the east, but the gentleman that has the property won't sell it, and they don't want to part with it. And there was, if you can look in the attorneys for the last 30 years, always there's going to be a lawsuit, because there's a paper road, a 50-foot paper road that comes into this area, but they vacated it 25 years ago. My days can be fuzzy, but it's now just a driveway for 500 Ottawa. So I've approached that gentleman there, offered him to build him a new house for his house, so I could put the road in there, and it was all dead ends. So I took my next option and bought one of the 4 houses that were there. I checked with zoning. It's totally legal. Everything is within the rights of what is allowed for splitting, and came in that way. Now, you're also talking about the house being all by itself. There's still neighbors to the west of it.
To the west of it, yes.
Yes. So it's not like it's just a house with a road on both sides. It's not like we're creating a triangle with a house in the middle with roads on all 3 sides of it. There's a road in front of it, and now it's going to be a corner lot. But it meets all the side yard setbacks.
And enough protection for that house from your property?
Landscaping, if you look at the landscaping that's in there, you won't even see the house.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to point out, because I did find it, on page 82, it does say, both housing types contain a 3-car garage, 4 bedrooms, and 4 restrooms. The applicant states that the building footprint will be 1,400 square feet. However, the total area of each home is unclear. So I got that from somewhere. I knew I did because I
Okay.
wrote it down. So basically, that's incorrect.
Probably a typo like Ben had. Should have been
Yeah,
2,400
no,
on
that's
each
fine.
floor.
I'm not trying to call you out, but I was like, I knew we got that from
Yes,
somewhere.
yes,
I was
I saw
like,
that.
so I just have to wrap my head around a much larger home. It wasn't what I was thinking, so that's why I had sticker shock on the price as well. Okay, anyone else have any questions for the applicant while he's up?
Oh, I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Troy Wood and the Vanderpool elevations, not much difference there.
No.
What can you
There's
do?
there's more front elevations that go on each house to change them up. I think I have to have 3 different elevations, changing the height of a porch, putting different, setting something back, which we have for both houses. I just couldn't show 25 elevations for every house. But the building department is very good on making sure that elevations, there's A, B, C, and D, and they don't have next to each other, and they have to approve those through the master plans first before they're ever built.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, there's got to be at least three differences, and they've got to be architectural differences, not color of
Not color,
siding.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I do have one more question about the wetlands. So I know they're regulated by Eagle and you got to work with them to do it. And I asked the question about the banking or whatever, but just from a practical standpoint, because I didn't see an overlay of the houses over the wetlands to understand. But from a practical, just so I understand, if you're building a house on a wetland, you could buy credits to do it somewhere else off your property. But at the end of the day, what I want to know is that house that's on the wetland, aren't they going to have issues being built on a wetland? Don't you have to mitigate it?
Well, when a house is built on that wetland, it's a part of the house will probably be in the existing wetland, but it's dug out and the dirt is all gone. You're down to hard virgin soil and then brought up to that way. So you're not going to have like flowing water coming through the house on that house. A
These are
wetland,
things that are, the engineers are checking for us. We're not just letting people build on wetlands and then they have water in their basement.
The site would have to, if it was granted preliminary site plan approval, it would have to be engineered. But before it would be granted final engineering from the engineering department, Eagle would have to sign off on it. So Eagle would have to sign off on those wetlands. Now, my understanding, I'm not a civil engineer, so I'm just, I'm just, know enough to be dangerous, but my understanding is they're more receptive to filling in wetlands when it's for a road or a sidewalk or what have you. They're less receptive when it's a home. So there is the possibility that Eagle does not sign off on one of the units. And Eagle has a jurisdiction. It's their decision. So theoretically, this is the maximum number of units that Mr. Abathur is going to get if it's approved as 10. It's only going to go downhill from here if Eagle does not approve one or more units on the site based on the regulated wetlands that are on the site.
Okay, thank you. And it's 9 new buildings because one exists.
it'll be
8.
8, because there's 2 existing, we're tearing 1 down. So we're adding 8 new homes to the area.
Okay. Yes.
In the previous plan that Mr. Carlisle showed in his presentation, the detention pond was right on top of the wetlands that we see on the map above. What was your rationale to move it down south?
Well, I purchased property down there and have that outlet to the stream, which makes the pond better. Could be built better, it's out of the way, and it can retain more water. Plus, with getting rid of the retention pond up there, the lots are all bigger. So now we have lots that are, matches the size of Ottawa lots and not just little postage stamps. You always want to put a retention pond at the lowest point of the property because water drains the lowest point. So it's lower down there than it was up there. It would have worked up there, but the engineer said if you can get it down there, it works better. And you can see it's as close to the Clinton River as you can be.
Yeah, I saw that on the other side. Okay, thanks.
Did you have something, Mr.
Just
Lambert?
one quick question.
Yeah.
I know one of the concerns I have is how this development fits in with the existing neighborhoods. And I know they do not have sidewalks, and although we like sidewalks because they provide safety, how wedded are you to having some kind of a feature so that the sidewalks don't spill right into their subdivision? Maybe backing off a little bit, or maybe just having them on one side?
Well, I would like my sidewalks to go right to the edge of the road. From when the school bus comes and picks the school kids up, they can walk from the sidewalk right to the bus. To say you want to stop it 10 feet short, that'd be a engineering question. I prefer to run them right to the end, because you never know. There can be an SAD in a neighborhood, and they can put sidewalks in. So there could be sidewalks in its sub. If the neighbors want them, they could be there very quick.
I don't think they want them, but.
Well, but it's that option's always there. I mean, as people move out, new people move in, they have young kids, they want sidewalks, there could be an SAD and have sidewalks put in.
Okay, thank you.
The question or the comment was brought up about or you brought up the school bus. It made me wonder, the fire engines can turn around in there and all that? Okay. All right.
Any
We don't have
other
any other questions. Go ahead and take a seat.
I do have one more comment.
course.
I'll put in one of the letters that was written to the Planning Commission, I feel, I'm very disappointed in it, talking that I think that I get preferential treatment from the Planning Commission, and my relationship with the city only helps me. And they further think that city's already undermined in transparency and fairness of this process. If you look at it, it's one of the letters that came in. I highlighted the points to it. It's serious doubt of the commission's impartiality and suggests a predetermined outcome to this project and does not reflect well on the Planning Commission, the city's decision-making process. I don't mind people always taking shots at me, which is fine, but I do not get special treatment up here. You guys, as a board, I'm knocked down 4 or 5 times on projects sometimes, and I keep coming back because I listen to what everybody wants, and I come back, and I come back, and I come back. And I still go to city council and get knocked down. So there is, in my mind, no preferential treatment. And just for someone to even write that into an email, and it's public, and it goes all out through the city, and they think that, is just, doesn't belong in this room of talking like that. I don't know if you guys have read it, but I was very disappointed in seeing that in a letter. So that's where I'm going to end at.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. We all received a packet of emails. That's what he's referencing. I just saw it now. Okay, this is not a public hearing, but there are, I have a full room, so I am going to open it up to public comment at this time, unless anyone has any issues with that. So if you come up, we have a lighting system that Mr. Savadon's going to run for us, right? You get 3 minutes?
That is correct.
Okay, so you get 3 minutes, green light. Please sign in before you begin, state your name. Green light, I think the yellow light gives you a 1-minute warning, and then at the red, we're gonna cut you off. So yeah, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Richard Linnell, spelled Linnell. I am here on behalf of many owners in Troy Villas, which is the platted sub that the majority of the project is proposed for, as well as homeowners in Gulf Estates. I don't have an exact count, but I am told, because I don't interface with all of them, that I represent upwards of 80 homeowners. The site plan that you have before you, quite honestly, is inappropriate. It's carving up an existed platted subdivision. When you look at this picture or the aerial picture, you can see the character of the surrounding neighborhoods, specifically the size of the lots, the homes that are on them. It's, I wouldn't call it rural, but it's definitely low density. And this is anything but low density. I can appreciate that there were some comments about the fact that there are less units proposed here than there were back in 2018, but that doesn't change the issue. It doesn't change the issue of density. I mean, if you even take a look, look at lots 1, 2, and 3, and their counterparts on Ottawa Drive. Each of them is literally half the size of the existing lots that they abut. And when a new development comes in, it's supposed to enhance. I understand that it may not be exactly like what it's adjacent to, and of course there could be transitional zoning, although I don't think that applies here. But if this were approved, you're talking about taking a single-family home, removing it, and I know there's talk about density, which I'll address in a second, but you're talking about removing it to erect a road, a 60-foot right-of-way. When plats are created, they are contracts, if you will. They're contracts with the municipality. They're contracts from the platter with the municipality, a contract between the people that buy. A level of expectation is set amongst co-owners, of which the applicant is, of course, a co-owner in this platted subdivision. And quite honestly, to allow this site plan to be approved and constructed would be to harm the existing character, the very character that my clients relied upon when they purchased in this platted subdivision. The point of the plat, again, is to establish the character of the neighborhood. And there was talk about building envelopes, rear yards. They meet the minimum rear yard setback, if I understood what was said by the planning consultant, Mr. Carlisle. If you look at, again, look at the adjacent lots, and this is pervasive throughout Troy Villas. Look at the depth of the lots. Look at the size of the rear yards. I mean, the scale between the existing homes and the yards. And I would grant you, certainly my clients might sell, might tear their homes down, but the scale would be changed only slightly given the existing size of the lots that are contained in both Troy Villas and Gulf Estates.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
I have so much more.
It's 3 minutes. It's a pre-established time. It is 3 minutes. I would ask that the speaker step down. There's not even a legal requirement to have a public hearing here, so the 3-minute rule is very fair.
Thanks, Mr.
But I leave it up to the chair.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a whole room full of people, I mean, we got to let everyone have 3 minutes.
I suspect most of them are my clients, and they would cede time.
We don't have to explain why we have a pre-existing rule.
Okay, hang on.
Okay.
I mean,
Mark 3 minutes individually, since he represents us.
We discussed that during the bylaws, and we.
so,
It's up to the chair.
yeah, my thought is going to be if no one else is going to come up and speak and we want to give him a certain amount of time, but then I would say no one else is going to come up and speak. I mean, that would be my thought. I mean, what does everyone think?
I don't want to deprive the other people in the room from having the chance to speak, so if that's going to be...
Ms. Dufresne, do you have any thoughts?
Well, we had this discussion when we revised the bylaws. It's up to the chair at this point. If the chair wants to call for a consensus of how to proceed, that's within her purview. There is precedent for allowing one person to speak on behalf of a number of people, but I think Mr. Linnell should have advised us ahead of time that that's what he was planning to do. It's in the middle of the 3 minutes, or the end of the 3 minutes, to tell us he wants more time. We don't know how many of these people are, he says 80, there aren't 80 people here, so we don't know how many people he's actually speaking on behalf of.
Right.
So it puts us in a very precarious situation. I understand they've paid for Mr. Linnell. However, we do have rules, we do have our bylaws. So it's up to you, Madam Chair, to either call for a vote or ask Mr. Linnell to step down. Or make a decision without calling for a vote.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would just really quickly like to ask by a show of hands, if we let Mr. Linnell speak for 10 minutes, how many other people are going to still want to come up and speak for 3 minutes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask the idea of how much more time you'd like? Approximately?
It's hard for an attorney to limit himself, but
ask you hard
certainly 5 minutes at most.
Do we want to ask for hands that he's representing? Again, this is your call, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I would say, what I was going to say is we could let Mr. Linnell have 5 minutes, and then the 5 people I pointed to can have 3 minutes, and then that's it.
That seems reasonable.
That's good.
I like that.
Okay? So that's another 20 minutes. Okay, so 5 minutes, and then the 5 people who raise their hand that I called on will be 3 minutes.
I'm just going to remind this
Yeah.
board that we do have an item at the end of the agenda that allows for public comment for items on the agenda.
That's correct.
So I'm just, I don't want to prolong this meeting any more than it has to be. If we're going to let them speak at the end anyways, because we have to, because it's a part of the agenda, I mean, it's up to you. I wanted to point out that there is another opportunity for people to speak.
Yeah, right, no, you're right, you're right. So you're suggesting just let everyone who wants to speak now?
I'm just offering my
Okay,
2
okay.
cents here.
Mr. Fox?
We did have extensive conversation about this situation back when we reviewed our bylaws, I believe it was last year. And I do understand that there are members of the public who hired an attorney, but I think it needs to be clarified. This is not legally mandated. The fact that there is a public hearing on this item at all is a courtesy, meaning that those who did hire an attorney hired an attorney without a guarantee that anybody would get a chance to public comment. And so I guess I am just nervous that we establish a precedent of, this is not the first time we've had a large group of neighbors come in to talk about a specific. Do we want to set a precedent that every time a large group of neighbors comes in, if they hire an attorney, that attorney can then basically give a counter presentation to the applicant that up until the years I've been on here, we just have not kind of allowed counter presentations, I guess. So I will ultimately go with the direction the board wants to go. I do think that we should take caution in terms of the precedents that we are establishing. And the simple fact is that we don't even technically have to be allowing this comment at all.
Right.
Can I comment on
Yes,
that?
please
This
do.
is
Sure.
this is an open meeting. Due process requires that anybody, notice an opportunity to be heard. So regardless of whether or not, this isn't, I want to make the record clear, this is not a public hearing. This is public comment on an item before the agenda, but it's still an open meeting that requires due process, opportunity to be heard, and people are allowed to comment. I wish Mr. Linnell had let us know ahead of time that was his plan, because that's sort of what our bylaws expect. But again, open meeting requires that we
Right.
give people the opportunity to speak.
I think that in the past, and we did have this conversation, it is up to me to decide whether or not we're going to allow people to speak. And Mr. Lambert was my predecessor. He always let everyone who wanted to speak. We did have a few meetings where there was a packed room, and we actually asked, so we wouldn't be here till midnight, we asked that people would say, if you agreed with so-and-so, raise your hand, and we took a count, indicated in the record to give an idea of how many people are here, showed up, and feel the same way. We didn't have to hear it many times. So I guess where I'm going with this, to Ms. Dufresne's point, everyone here is allowed to speak on the last item of the agenda, or whatever we said, number 7. So I would, if we're going to hear them anyway, I'd rather hear everyone who wants to speak now. Given this unusual circumstance of having an attorney present, I appreciate that you guys are sharing your time, allowing him to have more time, and then several of you, I'm not going to put a number, but whoever wants to come up after can come up after. But I would appreciate that if it's been said, we can take a vote if you want to show by a show of hands if you're in agreement. And I will ask if anyone's here in support of the project as well, so we can see by a show of hands or if anyone wants to come up. But we just don't want to be here for 3 hours hearing the same thing, if you guys understand. Okay, so let's go another 5 minutes.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, is that okay?
I'm going to load 5 minutes on this and hit start.
Okay. Here we go.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The appropriate way to revise a plat is through a lawsuit in circuit court. That's how a plat is to be amended. A site condominium is not some magic potion that all of a sudden says, well, you can combine two plats, you can change the characters of a plat. You do it through circuit court. And that's what an applicant should do if that's what they want to do, which of course they would be suing themselves, which is somewhat ironic. The site plan itself, the developer talks about lowering density in 8 net units, but that's because they're proposing to destroy a home, which, as I've already said, I would argue would destroy some of the character of the very plat that they want to go through. So I don't think there should be any attaboys for that type of effort when you're talking about, again, shoehorning many units into a very small piece of property. You have a 60-foot right-of-way, which changes the character at the very least for the adjacent parcels, screening or not. You have land from another plat. You also, there was talk about the wetlands, and it was touched on a little bit, but you're talking about taking wetlands from this area, and I'm very familiar with how land bank mitigation works. It has to be within the same watershed, or at least that's the strong preference from Eagle. That watershed is very extensive. I don't know if this is the Clinton River or not, but whatever watershed it is, it could be anywhere. So you're talking about taking wetlands from the community, and more importantly, or maybe as importantly, taking it away from the aesthetics of what you have here. This is effectively 2 lots becoming 10, and a whole lot of asphalt in between. There was talk about flooding, and the amount of impervious surface that's being created in this is tremendous, although I don't really want to focus on that because that's more of an engineering issue. The Condo Act was not intended to be used to extend over existing plats. I think I've made that point, but I want to be clear. It doesn't make the underlying approvals, the underlying plat, go away. These private restrictions, and I understand that may not be the purview of the Planning Commission, but these are restrictions that are enforceable between the co-owners. And that's part of the reason why, if there's going to be an effort to make this kind of approval, a lawsuit should be filed, and all the co-owners will be named, and all the co-owners will have a chance to speak their mind and speak their piece and assert their position in circuit court. Regarding the traffic study, it does identify there's more traffic, which I think is sort of significant, in 121 more trips. That's not an insignificant number. It doesn't really talk about the impact of the 121 trips, but that's a significant amount of traffic, especially if you live on Ottawa or the homes that are on Ottawa that abut this street. You're talking about significant changes. I understand it's challenging to be a developer. I've represented many developers. I still do to this day. I've been one. But the reality is that the challenges that a developer faces, they're not necessarily to be overcome by the municipality. I'm not suggesting that municipalities shouldn't work with developers, but the reality is that there are challenges here. There are wetlands here. There's not, the proposed property or proposed units themselves are much smaller than the surrounding characteristics. And I don't think it's incumbent upon the Planning Commission to assist the developer to overcome these, what I'm going to call self-imposed challenges. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead and come on up.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Tom DiCarlo. I own 382 Ottawa Drive. I am that house that you're talking about. I am the house that's immediately adjacent to where that road is going to go. Because of the way this is laid out, if this goes in, Ottawa Drive, as it goes past my house, curves south. So my neighbors are actually behind me. When this road goes in, if you stand in front of my house and you look at my house, what you're going to see is a house and 2 roads. I'm just going to be stuck right out there all by myself. I just can't imagine what that's going to do to the property values. The other problem with where this driveway wants to go is it's going to run adjacent to the side of my house, which is where my master bedroom happens to be. So we're talking about 121 cars a day driving down a road that's going right outside my master bedroom window. It's also adjacent to where my grandchildren play. We all purchased and constructed a rather elaborate playscape for my grandchildren. It's about 15 feet inside the property line. Right now, it's nice and quiet, peaceful, no activity, no roads. Now they're going to be faced with playing in the backyard with 121 cars going back and forth while they're trying to play. The noise, the fumes, the disruption. And none of that gets to the construction. They're going to take down a house, and they're going to bring in bulldozers and backhoes and road graders and cement trucks, and all of that traffic is going to go by the side of my house. I'm trying to raise a family, and my grandkids play. That is going to be a tremendous burden on me, on my house. It's going to destroy my ability to live quietly. I've spent some money improving the back of my house so that I have a nice place with a barbecue and a little patio so my family can sit out there and enjoy the way our lots are laid out. We have a nice big backyard. We sit on a half acre of ground. We back up to some woodlands. That's all gone. It's all gone if this goes forward. 121 trips a day. First of all, I find that I understand there's engineering standards for how they determine that, but I actually have to question it. If there's 10 houses back in there and you assume that there's 2 drivers in each house, 20 trips in the morning, 20 trips in the afternoon, you're up to 40. That's just at rush hour. To dump 121 cars on Ottawa Drive, if any of you have driven on Ottawa Drive, it's a little narrow 2-lane road. There's no sidewalks. There's swales on the side. Kids have to ride their bikes in the streets. Pedestrians have to walk in the streets. But people who want to get their mail have to walk across the street to get their mail on Ottawa. And we're going to dump another 121 cars or more a day on that, not to mention the construction equipment, the concrete trucks, the backhoes, the bulldozers, all of the things that it takes to build a house. All of that is going to fall uniquely on 2 houses, mine and the one that's on the other side of 400. It's also going to impact the people directly across the street because that road's going to dump basically into their front yard. Thank you very much. I would obviously request that the commission reject the request.
Thank you. Please hold your applause. Thank you.
I'm Mitch Mountney. I'm actually Tom and Kelly's neighbor right with them. So our house is actually on that curve, and the way our house is situated, we look directly at where that road will be. So we will not look at a house, which a lot of people do, which is not a big deal, but we're going to be looking at a road. I have a picture of our backyard. That playscape Tom was talking about is directly right next to where that road is going to be, our trampoline. We have his grandkids, my kids. It's the neighborhood central. It's a play area. It's a safe haven. And Ottawa and Donaldson, where they come together, we personally had to come to the city to ask for stop signs because we have a half-mile straightaway from Rochester to that intersection. And people, regardless if you put police there every once in a while, it happens. They come 40 miles an hour around that turn, and now you're adding another intersection 60 feet away, whatever. It's going to be the most ugly, confusing intersection, and my kids play there. And we put them in the backyard and tried to create a safe space and moved there 15 years ago, and now it's going to be a road. I'm literally going to look on a road out my back window and a road out my front window. Now, I don't mind Gary making money living dividing properties. I'm doing it myself right now, but you know what the first thing I did? I went to my neighbors and I said, hey, is this okay? I'm going to be putting a road here. And I got their approval. What Gary did, and you guys don't know, our neighbor Jill, who owned that home, me and my wife sat out many days watching when we knew she put it up for sale. We watched families come in and say, man, I can't wait to have new families. And she wanted to sell it to a family. Gary told her that him and his family were going to move there. And that's why she sold it. And then she got engaged. She moved to North Carolina. And Jill found out that Gary's company was the one buying the property the day of the closing. Is that who we want to do business with? Everyone here is dealing with this right now. This has been years. We've had that green sign out in front of that house that he bought for, 7, 8 years, whatever it is? And we just have to drive by it every day, not knowing what's happening, constantly asking. We didn't even know this meeting was happening. I talked last week to someone in the city because we saw the new sign. They changed the way it looked. He said, no, there's nothing coming. You'll be notified by a letter. Nothing. So we're all here by chance, all right? And it all started because he lied to get this property because no one wants a subdivision going in coming off of Ottawa. Come off of Square Lake. Build your neighborhood. We don't care. But you're coming into an existing neighborhood that's safe and the way we like it. And I hope you guys would know that too. To start something on a lie, that's why we're all here. For the last 8 years, we had to deal with this because a man lied to someone about buying a house.
Will you sign in?
Yeah.
And while he's signing in, Madam Chair, can we ask how they should be clapping?
Yeah, please, no.
How should it?
Oh,
It's a
if they
certain
wanna
way, I don't
snap?
remember.
I don't know. They came up with that.
Was it like
Wave
this?
their
I don't know what it
hand.
is.
It's the ASL universal silent applause is like
Okay.
this. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Could we get some clarity on the last two speakers, the home location?
Yeah, just to the left, well, if you're looking at this right there, we're the two on the left.
The kind of the triangle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you take
He's
the
actually
pencil?
going to be on the right.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Good evening. My name is Douglas Avery. I have a vested interest in this. I live presently at 440 Ottawa, which is the first street right next to or first home rather, right next to the street that's being proposed. Back in 1969, when my wife and I were looking for a house, we were shown this house by the salesman. And one of the selling points was the fact, he said, look out the rear window, look out your living room window. It's got the woods back there. He says, that's always going to stay out woods. He said, that's completely enclosed by houses. They cannot build there. There's no access there. I said, oh, that's great. And so we bought the place. Well, that was in the summer. The following spring, I found out one flaw with the property. The back of the property, about the last, 75 feet or so, 100 feet, are practically underwater. And it's been that way every spring. And if you get a big rain, it gets wet. It's the whole area is low. And we found out, well, that's why they didn't build back there. They got too much water back there. So I'm just wondering what has changed that they can suddenly build back there. Not only that, but put homes in there, which are probably going to bring in dirt to raise the level of the houses, which means all the water now, my water has no place to go. And so I'm going to wind up with even wetter property than I had originally. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, want to come up?
Before I start, can I give you this, please?
Yes.
There's just pictures about the flood.
Thank you. Oh, is that yours? Okay.
There may be wetlands there, but actually that whole neighborhood's a floodplain. Floods all the time. And by the way, I had to take the city to court, and I've got my own private sewer. And if it gets worse, I got bad news for everybody. I'll be back with my attorney, okay? And they say there's no flooding. I have a bunch of pictures there where it's literally going over the peak of Ottawa Street. There is a problem here, okay? Everything between Square Lake, Coolidge, Crooks, and South Boulevard and Livernois drains into that neighborhood into the corner. And per that report, FEMA, there's 3 bad places in Oakland County for flooding. And it's that corner. And it's not going to get any better. And there will never be a sidewalk on the north side because part of the settlement is the extra ditch. And you drive by 761, you'll see there's a sewer. The city put that in for me because the builder came in and backfilled, and it became a problem. You can't walk right now. I have a fenced-in area, just half the lot approximately. You walk past the fence, it's mud. Not only is it mud, there's artesian wells back there. I mean, this whole area is a floodplain. And everything going the other side of Crooks is Huron River. Everything on this side is the Clinton River. And you change it. And right there, you've got a picture. I mean, just as recently. And when that happened, by the way, that day, that, let's see, I think this is the third time, I've lived there about 30 years, the third time they've had to replace the culvert bridge on Livernois. They were out there, the county. I looked and I said, wow, it's sinking to the north side. That's how much water flows through it. That's a brand-new culvert bridge, maybe 2 years old. And they were out there sucking and pumping in concrete for like 3 days. I mean, it's a serious issue. It's not going to go away. My time up?
No, you've got it.
Okay. You know, this is serious. I mean, there's only 3 places in Oakland County that FEMA thinks is bad, and you see the report. It's 82 pages long. I could have printed it all out to you. I hate to tell you, apparently the worst place is right where we live. And the county will end up being responsible, just like they were responsible for my private sewer. And I never pushed it to go all the way back. It's just in the front. But I get more flooding, I guarantee you, I will do something about it. I do not wish to do something about it. Everybody knows that's a floodplain area. FEMA knows it. The county knows it, obviously, because they keep replacing the bridge. It is an issue that's not going to go away. So to say there's not much of a flooding problem, are you kidding me? Just look at the report from 2015. I mean, this is a big deal. As a matter of fact, no, that's it. I'm surprised the 3 houses, by the way, didn't flood out with that peak.
Sir, would you please state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ben Blazak, B-L-A-S-D-A-K.
Maybe ask the location of his residence.
Yeah.
761 Ottawa.
Okay, and you signed it?
Yeah, I signed it. I put it all in here.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yep.
Marcia Bossenberger, Ottawa Drive. This has been going on since 2018. A cluster option concept was considered, but would not be approved by the city. This option would have allowed for greater density and more open space for the northern adjacent property owners. However, the wetland impacts would have affected 5 lots, and the detention basin would have needed to be an outlet to the east into the wetland on the adjacent properties. This was from Keto Geikis, from Eagle Wetland Identification Program Coordinator. Part of Troy's site plan review is to achieve innovative stormwater management solutions and to prevent adverse impact on adjoining or nearby properties. Parts of 500 Ottawa and adjacent properties to the east are untouched. The Eagle Wetland Map Viewer shows that wetlands extend past the 500 Ottawa, going over several backyards. Eagle said and told me today that, yes, there are wetlands on adjacent properties, but they have yet to be identified or properly mapped out. Wetlands are better preserved as a whole. Per the city's master plan, natural features provide significantly more benefits if they are maintained in larger units, such as wetlands. Seasonal and headwater streams make up almost 60% of our drinking water, according to Michigan.gov. 500 Ottawa has a seasonal stream that runs through the property. I know this because the property where proposed House 8 will be built, there was a small bridge that us kids would cross to cut to school. This stream runs through all marked wetland properties. I wonder what's going to happen to house number 8. I spoke with Eagle's floodplain engineer, and he mentioned that there can be a study done on hydraulics of the Clinton River and how the river has changed the impacts the areas of the floodplain. He also stated that there are grants that can be used for the study, so this would be of no cost to the city. FEMA's maps for our area were last updated in 2006, 19 years ago. Troy has changed a lot in 19 years. I attended the Great Lakes Water Association meeting. They talked about how the 100-year flood detention basins don't keep up with the current climate change. Eagle also said the intensity, duration, and frequency of rain, including the microbursts of rain, are very different today than they were in the past. Microbursts are what we call buckets of rain. Closing, I would like to show pictures of how GFA bulldozed over pink wetland delineated tags. Is this the responsibility of the property owner to know what is in their land?
Thank you.
So I'm going to give this to you. Water.
Marcia, did you sign in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Dave Sickenetter, 335 Ottawa. My wife and I live across the street from the proposed project in the old, I'll call it the old Ottawa district. It's been well represented already, the flood issues that we incur each year. And I'm reviewing over Mr. Abathieri's storm drain process. I would ask the commission board here to really take in mind that this is all draining out into the Gibson-Renshaw Creek or drainage. That creek, if you've ever noticed it in the springtime, for at least 3 to 4 months maintains a water level that goes actually up into the backyards of the homes that are closer to Livernois that are off of Ottawa, and then not to mention the subdivision behind it. That creek really needs to have some study done whether it can control and handle the amount of water that would shed off this new project. We moved in 2017. We literally didn't have any real issues with water. And then one unfavorable neighbor came in a couple of years later and decided to build a 150-foot 8-inch berm in his backyard along his fence line. That actually disrupted after he was completed with that and the natural flow of that property. And mind you, we're probably 15, 20 feet higher in elevation than the proposed areas because we're across the street. That simple move, and I know some of the people here on this board as well as the city understands that we've protested that to a certain degree, unpermitted as it was, but has created now 6 to 8 homes in our immediate area that literally cannot use their rear yards until the first part of July. We can't mow. The neighbor directly behind us, she can't mow her yard probably until the end of June or first part of July. So our homeowner quality ship, our backyard havens are virtually underwater. So I think I really would like to stress the importance, and I think everybody's represented the flood issues and probably will continue, but I'm trying to keep to your docket here and how to express that. But I really would like to see some type of study done that addresses the 2-foot pipe coming out of the complex into an 8-inch pipe into that actual Gibson-Renshaw drainage, because it cannot, and I don't see it ever being able to support the new growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak, and thank you for letting our lawyer speak. The issue of the flood concerns have been talked about, so I'm also going to talk about the plats. The plat of our subdivision is a legal binding document that outlines the specific layout of streets, parks, and public spaces. This plat provides certainty and stability for all our residents. The proposed lot on the proposed road on Lot 66 constitutes a major deviation from this established plan, undermining the rights of all the homeowners who have relied on this original plat layout to make their property decisions. Mr. DiCarlo in particular, who will, if this goes through, now own a home next to a road, he's going to be particularly, him and Mr. Avery on the other side, they're going to be particularly affected by this house being torn down with a road being put in. Mr. DiCarlo is a recent purchaser of his property, and he purchased his property and relied on the plat, relied on this existing plat, and not knowing that a home could be torn down next to him. The deed restrictions, the deed, along with those of my neighbors, the existing deed restricts the use of land within the subdivision to residential purposes. So the construction of a road would violate this restriction, potentially impacting the character and the peaceful enjoyment of our homes. I know there's been other homes torn down in the city of Troy to put in a road, but it doesn't compare to the actual impact that will have on this neighborhood for this particular home being torn down. So I just want the commission to please be aware of what would happen to our neighborhood if you do accept this proposed plan and how it affects our entire neighborhood. So I just wanted to make that you aware of all of that. Regarding the traffic studies, I was at a city council meeting about the Troy corners, and a city council member even stated that the traffic studies that are shown for every development, she's never seen one that actually represents and is in its impact on the neighborhoods. So even in city council agrees that traffic studies aren't representative to what happens in actuality. My last thing about is the transparency of the notice of this meeting tonight. I was the one that wrote the email regarding not being notified. We were told that the neighbors within 300 yards would be notified well in advance of this meeting tonight, and we just weren't in agreement with how we found out at the last minute about this meeting. So I just want to make sure that you know that I wrote the email, and please vote no on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's her name?
She's not. She didn't give her name? Shoot. Excuse me, could you come back and give your name, speak your name into the, I'm sorry, I watched you sign in and then I lost track that you didn't state your name. We want you to read it into the record.
My name is Rosemary Thomas Sickenetter. I live at 335 Ottawa Drive.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we're here for.
Hi, my name is David Cole. I live at 211 Ottawa. Been there for 48 years, so I've been through a bit. The last couple years, and I'm down far, down near Booth, okay? But the last couple years, we've had some, I don't know if they're 100-year rains, but we've had some pretty solid rains. And because of that, the last couple of years, I have, when at the peak of these rains, I have as much as 6 inches of water against my house because my neighbor is much higher than I am. Years and years ago, before I moved in, he bought a portion of what was my property and put in a garage, and he elevated the ground, and that's the cause of it. But many neighbors in my neighborhood, in fact, the lady I was sitting next to just a few moments ago has huge puddles. So something is changing out there. It's not that project there that's causing it. So I just wanted to clear that up. But I find it funny that the builder here is building these houses, and he said they're 4,000 square feet. He was proposing another project that was out on Livernois. In fact, he came before this council on that. Some of you may remember that. And at that meeting, I distinctly remember, and I just find it very humorous, that he was building, I don't know how many homes, there's quite a few. 4 homes were coming down and he was building 20 homes or something like that. And he said, and they were smaller homes, and he said, Troy doesn't need any more $500,000 homes. So I guess that's why he's now going to build $1 million homes, okay? And then the last thing I have to say is this traffic survey that they did. If they did that recently, they did it all just sitting at a desk, writing down things, because nobody has been out there. I haven't seen any counters in the road or anything for years. And so I find it kind of funny that they can say that it's going to be 121 trips down there. Recently, they did the work on Rochester Road from South Boulevard down to, I don't know, halfway down past Square Lake. And Ottawa is a very convenient road for people on Rochester when it gets backed up to come down Ottawa all the way down and pick up Livernois. And usually when they hit that stop sign that is near that gentleman's house now, they roll through there at about 20, and by the time they get down about 3 houses, they're doing 40 through Ottawa. So that 121 only applies on the good days. They have much heavier traffic when they have a problem on Rochester. Thank you.
Okay. We've got someone else?
Hi, my name's Frank Schaller. I live at 362 Ottawa. It's about right where number 10 is. And I've been there almost 40 years now. And every day, a couple times a day, I walk my dogs through all these streets. And, you know, I don't know if you saw a whole picture of this map here, where this new road is coming in and where the existing roads are. That's going to be horrible. I won't be able to walk that way. It's just, there's just too tight. And the development, you know, I've been there, there's been so many people surveying that area. I've talked to many guys and they say, it's all landlocked, so we don't know what's going to happen with it. And that was 30, 40 years ago. So, you know, I don't know how it's going through now and how you're just going to let this happen, because just go, anybody walk down there and just see what that's like, or what it's going to look like. That's all.
Thanks. By a show of hands, is there anybody here who is in favor of the project? Okay, and then by a show of hands, who is not in favor of the project? I counted about 29. Okay, so if we can put that into the record. Okay, thank you. We really appreciate everyone being here and giving us your comments. We're going to turn it back to, I'm going to close that part of the public comment and turn it back to the Planning Commission for deliberation.
Well, there's nothing to deliberate.
I'm sorry?
There's nothing to deliberate. You don't have a resolution on the table.
Oh.
Your discussion is fine.
Discussion,
Are you going
sorry.
to have someone acknowledge the number of emails that should be put into the record?
Right. I was going to make a couple of comments. First, I was going to offer Brent the opportunity, if he'd like, to respond to the notice comment that was made, or do you not want to comment?
So this is a by right development. It's not a public hearing. There's no requirement that there be notice published in the paper or a written notice that mailed to property owners. When I'm familiar with this neighborhood and many of the people who live in this neighborhood, their concerns with development in this area. I believe so when this application was submitted in, I believe in June of 2023, the day it was submitted, I emailed a resident who spoke this evening, who's in this neighborhood, to give this resident a heads up that an application had been submitted. I attached a site plan. Again, that was in 2023. The site plan has not significantly changed since 2023. I said the application was submitted. There's no date yet, so just keep your eye on the planning and development portal, where the site plan was also included and the sign was put up. Last week, I emailed the same individual and said, just a heads up, it's going to be on next Tuesday's Planning Commission meeting. So if that's blindsided, I mean, I think I counted 33 people that were here this evening. I don't know if anyone didn't get the notice that this was on the meeting this evening. And again, it's been on the portal and the sign's been up since 2023. So I don't think that anyone here should be blindsided by this.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess I wanted to, not to put Mr. Dufresne on the spot, but to just, there was a lawyer here, there were a lot of legal arguments made.
Sure, and I respect Mr. Linnell. He and I have never had a case with each other or against each other. He made, reasoned, thoughtful arguments. Mr. Abathera, I imagine, has stated during his presentation that he also has an attorney that would give the opposite opinion of Mr. Linnell. There are hundreds of examples throughout the city where the city has approved projects where we have an overlay of a site condominium on top of a plat. The plat in this instance is not, and I believe there are two plats, Troy Villas number 1 and Troy Villas number 2. I have the details, I just don't have them memorized. But we're not amending a plat, we're not combining a plat, we're overlaying the site condo on top of the plat. The more delicate argument, it is with respect to the deed restrictions that have been brought up. And I know we've talked about the deed restrictions the last time this matter was up. The city's position is the city does not enforce deed restrictions. It's considered a private agreement between, with the homeowners association. If that's not to say I am not going to share an opinion whether or not I think the deed restrictions are enforceable, whether or not they apply. That's for a court to determine, but it's not for the city to determine. There are probably, and I don't have any examples, but I'm sure there are lots of examples of deed restrictions throughout the city that are not being enforced. Mr. Carlisle gave me an example, and there are probably deed restrictions somewhere in the city that don't allow African-American people to live in the city. We're not enforcing that because first of all, it's not enforceable. But that's my point. The city doesn't enforce those deed restrictions. Are they enforceable? Is there someone in this audience or the homeowners association who would have standing to challenge that, depending on what happens today? Certainly. And would a judge make that decision? Certainly. But I'm not going to make that decision. Brent's not going to make that decision, and Ben's not going to make that decision. So I hope that you understand what I'm saying. The deed restrictions are definitely an issue. I believe Mr. Abathera has consulted with attorneys who have given him an opinion. The homeowners have consulted with an attorney, have given their an opinion. So
am I to understand that we are going to consider this and disregard the deed issue restriction? We're not going to use that as a reason why we wouldn't approve it, because we're not considering that.
This is a by right development, so I would be hesitant to solely rely on the deed restrictions as a basis to deny it. If there are other reasons, to deny it, you could cite that as an additional reason, but for that to be the sole basis, that would make me nervous. It sounds like, and I don't want to read the tea leaves too much, but there may be, some sort of litigation regardless of how this comes out. So whatever basis you're going to use to postpone, approve, deny, I would ask that you just make that, a very thorough record.
Okay, thank you for that. You mentioned the the emails, we received tonight emails from Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They were not emailed to us in advance, so I'm pretty sure, I don't know how early people got here. I was in a pre-meeting. I have not read them. In terms of getting them into the record, we just tell Ms. Zarnecki, or do we, I mean, you said read them into the record.
Oh, I was just wanted to acknowledge that we did have, I know that ZBA, sometimes, Mr. Fox, correct me, sometimes they'll just say we received emails from, for example, Kristen Sidler, Shelley Stinger.
Yeah.
But Ms. Zarnecki will have copies of them, and they'll be incorporated into the record.
Okay.
I think kind of going off of what ZBA does, I would just say, so it's 4 separate emailers, and I want to say it's 9 total emails. But 2 of the emailers did also speak tonight, so.
Okay. Mr. Buechner?
I think for Brent or Ben, can you speak to the drainage issue? How this would be, he's unbiased. I value his opinion. I hope everybody in the room does. But how would you speak to how the drainage would be better or worse? Can you elaborate? I know you said some things, but I'd like to hear some more.
Well, don't evaluate too much because I'm not a civil engineer. So I'll just try to give you the planning perspective on this. So if this were to be granted preliminary site plan approval and move forward through our review process, the next step would be for the developer to submit final engineering drawings to the city engineering department. The plans would be prepared by a civil engineer registered in the state of Michigan, reviewed by our engineers who are also registered in the state of Michigan. The plans would be sealed and signed, verifying their accuracy. There's a requirement that any site plan cannot negatively impact surrounding properties. So the engineer drawings that are submitted they're going to show grading, they're going to show underground utilities, they're going to show essentially when a raindrop lands on the site, where does it wind up? In this particular, again, I can't state enough that I'm not a civil engineer, okay? So, but for this design, there are a number of rear yard drains that are proposed. So these are closer to the perimeter of the site, and those drains will pick up storm water that flows or lands in those rear yard areas. And our engineering department, when they review these types of applications, not only do they want to ensure that they don't negatively impact the surrounding properties, if they can, they encourage the site to be designed in such a way that they actually improve surrounding properties. So I'm pretty confident that the rear yard drains that are proposed will be placed and designed in such a way that they can pick up some of this rainwater that today is pooling on the neighboring properties, and take that rainwater away from the backyards, put it in the detention basin, into the Clinton River, and eventually into the Great Lakes system. Now, I also understand that if ifs and buts, if this application were to be granted preliminary site plan approval, it would then afford the city the opportunity to have dialogue with the applicant to provide some underground storm pipes that could also potentially go all out to Ottawa Drive, connect to the ditch system, and take some of that water as well. So there's opportunity here to improve the stormwater flooding situation in this area, potentially. And I'll state for the third time, I'm not a civil engineer.
I heard something about attaching to a river, and the river's going to get bigger because of it.
So the Clinton River, there's the drain to the south down.
Yep.
It's
below 7, right?
Basin. It's an awkward site, so it's there.
Gibson Renshaw drain.
Yep.
Yeah, there's Gibson Renshaw. Someone just said. So there's water flows downhill, right? I know enough. I know that water flows downhill. So it either sheet flows, or when it goes into the stormwater system, it percolates into the system. This soil happens to be very clay, so it doesn't permeate through the soil very well. That's what the rear yard drains will assist with that. But eventually, it's going to be graded with the flow and with the pipes. It's going to go to the detention basin down here. Then there's going to be an outlet that outlets into that drain. That's the water is going to flow southerly towards the drain and eventually leave the property that way. So I think one of the residents indicated that in spring, in times of, when there's a lot of rain, a lot of runoff, that the Clinton River, this drain, as part of the Clinton River system, has some flooding. I don't doubt that, but I think that's what the comment was.
But our engineering department will double check it and make sure that it's done well.
Our engineering department will review the design and ensure that it doesn't negatively impact or negatively exacerbate this situation.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Fox.
The construction, you mentioned clay. Would the construction process, I know it was referenced like they dig down a certain depth in order to lay foundations. Would that be deep enough to remove the clay that's causing the lack of water absorption? Does that question make sense?
It does. So the foundations, the roofs and the foundations and the asphalt and the sidewalks are all impervious. So when water hits those, they have to sheet flow and the water goes somewhere else. So that's where the rear yard drains come in. That's where the slope comes in, the catch basins where the water flows, then goes into the pipes and then into the detention basin and then into the drain.
Okay. So with it currently sitting as it is, it's just kind of sitting on top with no way to go down because of the clay. And then hypothetically, again, not a civil engineer, but with the addition of ways for the water to flow, that then prevents. Okay.
So all that's taken into consideration. The type of soil. I mean, the sand is a lot more pervious than clay. Clay takes a long time for water to percolate through, if it even allows it at all.
Thank you.
Mr. Faison.
Thank you. Ben, I think Brent, I think this is for you. The road, right? I realize it's permitted and it's a by right development. I'm just curious, how far is the edge of the road from the property line of the adjacent properties?
$15 feet?
From the property
18 feet?
line? Yeah. And then what's the setback of the building from the property line?
45.
Okay, so 60 feet between the road and then the building.
Unless it's side.
Side.
Probably closer than that.
Okay. What would the side setback be?
You have a question?
Got it?
Side setback is a minimum of 10 feet in this district, or maximum of 20, or up to 25 feet, so it depends on where the house is placed.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Crum?
Yeah, I got a question. This, I guess, Mr. Frame would probably be the person that would hopefully provide an answer. So as we see it before us, it's a by right. So at this point, the builder can build exactly what he showed us. But if the recourse for the neighbors would be then to take it to circuit court, sue them on, I don't know what principle, but
Well, I think what I had said before at a meeting was some sort of quiet title action might be appropriate. I don't typically do those kinds of matters, so I would defer to Mr. Linnell as to what. I suppose there's some sort of takings claim, but Mr. Abathura would have the same.
Of course,
right,
yeah.
as well. But to answer your question, so this is a by right development. You've seen the standards. Mr. Carlisle put the standards up on. So if this board determines that it otherwise complies with the city's zoning ordinance, then as a by right development, you need to vote accordingly.
go ahead.
I don't think I very adequately answered Mr. Faison's question with regards to the road. Can we zoom in here, Brent? So, a normal road, Mr. Faison, is located within a 60-foot right-of-way. Because the applicant is removing or placing the road on a lot, the lot itself this lot is probably 120 to 140 foot wide. So this is the actual 60-foot right-of-way. You'll
Right.
notice, though, in addition to the 60 feet, there's probably another 25 to 30 feet on the edge of the right-of-way to where the property line is. So from the actual edge of the road, it's 16 feet, which is the edge of the road from the right-of-way, plus another 30 feet just to the property line. So that's about 45, 46 feet, plus additional, I don't know, 10 to 20 feet. So on side setback. So in theory, or not in theory, as laid out, it's about 60 to 70 feet from the edge of the existing house to where the edge of the road would be, because the lot he's buying is wider than a normal road right-of-way. So that gives you clarification. I don't understand. Plus, I want to do note, within this 30 feet is where most of the tree mitigation to replace the trees being lost is being located. So when time of planting, they're, depends on what type of tree. If it's evergreen, it's 6 to 8 feet tall. If it's deciduous, it's 2.5 to 3 inches of caliber. So there will be some growth over time to screen that new road from the adjacent properties.
So it's distance plus mitigation from the green
Because the lot is wider than a normal 60-foot right-of-way, they have extra room for buffer and trees.
Thanks for the clarification.
Mr., yeah, go ahead. And really quick, I just want to ask, could you put the requirements up for us to look at?
What requirements, setbacks?
No, the site plan, what we're considering tonight to make sure, the standards. And then I think Mr. Krant had a question.
I just want to say, can we put into our resolution specifically the type of vegetation along near that neighbor that would be on the corner or directly adjacent to that road, so that it would totally block the vision and help screen sound, so that more of an evergreen type tree that would be year-round, blocking visual and noise to some extent.
Yeah, just real quick, the landscape plan, 97. The landscape plan shows a mix of evergreen and deciduous screening. If the planning commission's purview is for evergreen only, certainly I think that could be a condition of approval. But the proposed design was laid out by a registered landscape architect, and their interest is, or in their opinion, this was the best layout for the landscaping.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Malala Holly?
I have an unusual request, and feel free to deny if that is not something that we can do, but Peacock Drive comes off of Ottawa Drive, and that whole street has new houses built on it. I don't know when that was done. Is it possible for us to put the Google Maps up to kind of get a reference point to where the road might sit between the two homes, to understand how this development that is being proposed is probably similar to what already has been created in that area? In terms of setbacks, side setbacks, road, privacy issue, because there are two homes sitting on both sides of the Peacock Drive.
Peacock Drive.
Can you see it?
It is.
Yep.
If you go to the road view, or if you can drop the person onto that exact spot, we will be able to see the ground view. Take it all the way, to the corner of Ottawa and Peacock, please. Yeah. And if you...
That's pretty cool.
Maybe the opposite direction.
I think that's it.
Yes, right there. So this is the Peacock Drive, and you have two homes sitting. So for persons like me who is looking at the setback, side setback, road, privacy, all of those things, is this going to be pretty similar to what is being proposed?
No.
The question is being posed to the planning department, please.
First off, this would be a different one. It looks like the sidewalk ends, so Supposedly the sidewalk would be extended, and this looks to be much closer than what is being proposed or is proposed as part of Ottawa. I can dimension it off for you. I don't know off the top of my head, but it looks like it's maybe half the setback distance of what is being proposed. Plus, there's no landscaping in between.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, appreciate that.
So I think, okay, so we're discussing, there's no resolution on the floor yet. I mean, my thought is, we need to be looking at things like transition, making sure, we're providing the appropriate transition, and if we believe that we can ask for some mitigation in terms of the trees to make sure that that road is softened to the neighborhood as much as possible. Those are the things I'm looking at and considering. Mr. Fox?
Yeah, I think to the chairwoman's point, I think when it comes to the very, mathy standards in our ordinance, it has to be this distance, has to have this number of trees, the things that are very objective and you can point to them. I think ultimately, the applicant meets those conditions other than what's been identified by the planning office. I think where we come in is with the more discretionary, the site plan review design standards is more, us as a board, how we feel this fits into the community, so. Mr. Buechner.
Yes, Mr. Buechner.
This one for me is a little bit tricky because the by right is there. He's met a lot of the criteria that's been asked for. But as I read the site plan standards, to enhance the character of the surrounding area, I'm not going to take a poll, but we know how everybody's going to vote. I mean, it's not enhancing the character of the surrounding area. There's other things that are said in here, compatible transition. That's up for debate. I think what we're trying to do is make it as good as it could be. I'm the one who tends to lay it all out there. Sounds like this might go to court, and I hate to see that, but that might be where this gets called. I'm voting against it because I don't think it enhances the character of the surrounding area. Those 7 words for me I have trouble with.
Anyone else? Does anyone else have any questions that are remaining unanswered, or we're just having a hard time deciding if we feel it complies? I mean, yes, Mr. Faison.
Yeah, just on that point and on these standards, right, the lead-in development shall ensure compatibility to existing commercial districts and provide a transition between land uses. It's obvious it's not commercial, so, I mean, it's single-family residential to single-family residential, and that's not a typical transition that we talk about, right? It's not townhomes to single-family or commercial to single-family, so I'm not sure that's the right criteria. The buildings have a different style, right? Because they're newer, they're bigger. But do we restrict that?
I mean, I brought that up because I think about when other things have come before us where it's much more dense or much larger, towering over the ranch homes. But this is all zoned R1B, and they all have the same rules. And frankly, any of those homes on Ottawa could, if a homeowner wanted to add a second story to their home, they're entitled to do so just by pulling permits. If I said that right, I think they can do that. So, yeah, I don't know. Mr. Fox.
Well, and I know it's been a minute since the start of the conversation where I was inquiring, my question was, why are we reviewing this as opposed to, because it seems like it just matches. To me, if this applicant, another applicant, whomever, just wanted to come in and they just built one house at a time, this would get built without any type of touching any of these boards. And to me, that means that they've effectively meant what the purpose of the ordinance was back when it was reviewed by this board, well, maybe not this board, but previous boards and then city council. And I can absolutely understand, it is ultimately coming to discretion, whether or not it comes to the character of the neighborhood. Knowing that this is going to go to court, I think we would need to be able to very clearly articulate why it doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood. And to me, it's single-family homes going next to single-family homes with the exact same lot requirements, exact same road widths. It just, if it had been built when the neighborhood was built and that street was there, nobody would notice a difference. So to me, but again, I'm just one of 8 people up here, so.
Madam Chair,
Yes, please.
not to correct Mr. Fox, but
Yeah,
I feel
please.
like I have to. So the Land Division Act controls how properties are split. And in this instance, the Land Division Act would not permit the developer to build one home this year, then another home next year, another home. That's not permitted under the Land Division Act. The reason the applicants before us this evening with the site condominium is because of the restrictions of the Land Division Act don't allow him to make the splits and do this administratively. So I just wanted to
Okay, thank you.
clarify that. And I also, since we're talking about this, I think the intent of these standards here are, in my opinion, are they're more appropriately applicable to commercial development. The zoning ordinance treats the relationship between single family and single family as an appropriate relationship that doesn't require transition, and it actually doesn't require landscaping between single family and single family. So the ordinance looks at it as an appropriate relationship.
May I piggyback on that comment?
Yes.
So every time we talk about these site plan review design standards, I always remind this body that these standards are not tested. This body, these are subjective in nature, and they're not tested in court. We've had a couple of lawsuits that have challenged them, but we've won on other grounds. So please take Mr. Savadan's comments, and then, the comments that just because they're in an ordinance, they're untested in court, and they may not hold up.
Ms. Malala
As one of our fellow commissioners pointed out, it is a little tough decision, but a couple of things that came to, that I just want to point out. One, the developer had proposed a 16-unit development in this area, now scaled down to 10, or quite possibly now to 9 homes. Two, in looking at the site plan review and going down to enhancing the character, environment, and safety for pedestrians and motorists, yes, that is being definitely addressed through this development by providing a sidewalk. In the comments that we heard from the public and also the questions that I had about stormwater being a wetland area, and how significantly this site is being looked at by Eagle, and of course the permits are yet to be given to the developer, but the drainage system, as explained by Mr. Savadan and by the developer, I feel these are my big 3 concerns that I had coming in, but those have now been resolved. I still have one concern that is still weighing a little bit on me and my decision, and that happens to be that one house that is going to be sitting between 2 roads. But I went extensively into Google Maps, and I was looking at the entire area there. And although the Peacock Drive may not be same or similar to this one, because we're going to have more screening, green screening, and more side yard space between the road and the house, I am inclined to say yes to this project because I am in favor of single-family homes being built in a single-family area. Traffic is not going to be a big issue. I'm very familiar with Ottawa Street. I bike in that area a lot. I'm not worried at all about traffic, I can say that for sure. I know there are no sidewalks on Ottawa, but that is an issue that has been existing from whenever the homes on Ottawa got built. I am inclined to say yes to this project from the point of view of the density, from the point of view of drainage that is being addressed by the developer and still to be looked at by Eagle to draw those permits, and also by the fact that this is going to be incompatibility, it's going to be compatible rather with the existing residential single-family homes. I know there is a little bit of that one single house standing out. I'm not going to deny that is still there. But considering how much improvement this project has been given attention to, I think I'm inclined to give a yes vote today.
Mr. Fox?
May I offer up a motion? I'd like to formally motion preliminary site plan approval JPLN 2024-0030, proposed Oak Meadows site condominium, 10 units south of Ottawa, north of Square Lake, west of Rochester, 400 and 500 Ottawa, Section 3, currently zoned R1B, one family residential district. Be resolved that preliminary site plan approval pursuant to Article 8 and Section 10.02 of the zoning ordinance as requested for the proposed Oak Meadows site condominium, 10 units / lots south of Ottawa, north of Square Lake, west of Rochester, 400 and 500 Ottawa, Section 3, approximately 8 acres in size, currently zoned R1B, district be granted subject to the following conditions. Revise the plans to reflect accurate parcel numbers as discussed with the applicant, and then continue sidewalk along west side of the internal road as discussed with the applicant.
I'd like to add a third.
Yep, please.
To have screening on the road section from Ottawa south to where the homes start. Have that, the plant screening dense enough so that year-round it completely obliterates the ability to see through from the neighbor to the streets, but neighbors on both sides of that new street. In other words, I don't know how else to word it, but basically you create a solid mass of greenery year-round that will not will not make that street visible to those two homes.
May I suggest maybe something to the effect of that applicant provide screening, dense screening to the satisfaction of the planning department.
But plant.
Oh, plant screening, yes, dense plant
we don't
screening
wall there.
to the satisfaction of the planning department. I think the planning department understands what we're kind of getting at with the screening. Maybe not.
I don't know how to obliterate. I'm not
Sure.
I'm not a landscape architect, but I think there's some enhancement that can be done with some species that are coniferous that don't lose leaves, that provide year-round screening. So we can certainly enhance it with an improved landscape plan that includes more coniferous plants.
So maybe the applicant provide enhanced plant-based
That's
landscaping.
better wording than obliterate visible lines, sight of line.
Is there a legal definition to obliterate?
Well, it had to do with vision, but.
No, I'm teasing.
Go ahead.
So do you have that, Ms. Zarnecki? I want to make sure.
I have a lot, and I'm not sure how to condense it.
Okay, so the three conditions would be revised plans to reflect accurate parcel numbers, continue sidewalk along west side of the internal road, and applicant provide enhanced plant-based screening along the internal drive to the satisfaction of the planning department.
Got it, thank you.
Are we,
There was a third suggestion in the packet. Clarify colors and architectural variations used as described in section 4.06.4.
Oh, you're right. That didn't make it on the.
That's what I was going to say.
That didn't make it on the motion page.
So for every development like this, the developers have a palette of, they have an elevation and then they have different offshoots of that elevation that provide different architectural nuances that result in that the homes not be duplicated next on each side of them. So it's ABC, ABC. So he's going to, Mr. Abbott there, if this is approved, when he submits building permits, is going to have to demonstrate these variations at the time of seeking a building permit. So we're comfortable doing that because that's what we always do with these applications. We're comfortable requiring these at that time. If the planning commission is comfortable with
Would you prefer if that was stated explicitly in the motion, or is that? Okay, then I would like to add as a fourth bullet for Ms. Zarnecki, the applicant clarify colors and architectural variations used as described in section 4.06.4 of the zoning ordinance.
do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, Mr. Faison seconds. So now we deliberate. Does anyone else want to say anything? Yeah, Mr. Lambert.
Well, first, I think Mr. Apathira does have the right to build homes in this area. So I think he does have that by right to develop it. My concern is the sidewalk in there for two reasons. Number one, I don't think it fits with the adjoining subdivision because there's no sidewalks there. Secondly, and probably more from a legal or rational point of view, is the sidewalk is going to add to the impervious surface in that subdivision. And I think this would be an opportunity for us to adopt a plan that would allow better control of flooding by eliminating the sidewalks and putting in some kind of bioswale. So that's why I have a concern about the plan as presented.
I got a point for that one. I'm thinking of the kids going to school. So where does the bus arrive? Will it stop on Ottawa and then they have to walk from their home? I'd like them to have a sidewalk to walk on. I would think it's more of a safety issue with me than a little bit of lack of percolability of the water coming through, but that's,
I understand.
I'd leave the sidewalks in.
Doesn't the city require sidewalks?
The city requires sidewalks for this type of development. The only wiggle room, and I don't want to, I know as soon as I say it, I'm going to open up a can of worms, is the applicant initially proposed a sidewalk on one side of the street, linking this development to Ottawa. By leaving it at only one sidewalk, it affords the opportunity for more plant material in lieu of a sidewalk, for what it's worth, and also could impact underground utilities. One of the reasons for sidewalk connection is there could be children here that are going out to the school bus that are mobility limited.
Yep.
And
And it also creates a, if people want to do a loop on the sidewalk, they can safely do that loop. I'm going to say that I'm struggling with this because I respect Mr. Abathira's right to do this project, and but I also feel for the neighbors because this is a big change for them to have this road, and they've been there for many years and they've enjoyed the woods in the back. But I do feel like our hands are tied in this situation and that it does meet the standards. Other things that, Ms. Dufresne, that, talked to us about, it's not really under our purview at this point, and I feel like, along with Ms. Malala Holly, I do agree that the traffic study, I'll say I don't think that this is going to be too negative. The traffic isn't going to be a problem. And I also believe that the flooding will improve this area because I've been here 5 years and we've done a lot of these, and I always ask these questions. And the neighbors who come to us are already complaining about terrible flooding. And these new projects make them better. They don't make them worse. Same with the cut through. These are not new problems, they already exist there. So that's what I'm thinking. Anybody else?
Let's call for a vote.
Would you like to call for a vote?
Yes.
All right. I guess we're ready for the roll call.
Mr. Krent,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
No.
Ms. Malala Holly,
Yes.
Ms. Parakis,
Yes.
Mr. Buechner,
No.
Mr. Faison,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Before I tell you what I'm going to do with a vote, I want to tell this audience that what Mr. Abathria talked about earlier, of bias on this planning commission. I personally, in the past, have voted no on two, at least, Mr. Abathria's project. We are not biased. Look at the facts and vote our conscience, and I'm going to vote yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we move on to, sorry, I already misplaced my agenda. We are on to public comment for items on the agenda.
Brent, can you pull up the site plan, please? It was talked about how I didn't know wetlands were on the property. I didn't know it was investigated. You can all go on FEMA's wetland site and you can see what years that property was investigated. 2002, 2006, it's on there. For them to say, it's on there. It tells when that wetlands was investigated. And the meeting that I attended in December talked about the 100-year detention ponds cannot keep up. They cannot keep up. At Ottawa and Peacock, where you pulled up, that floods a foot over Peacock Street into that ranch. And then that detention pond flows over into the houses towards Rochester Road. The city is out there every year trying to fix that problem. If you look at the site plan, you can see a seasonal stream. If you could pull the colored site plan up, please, that flows through the east of the property. Those are the wetlands that continue. Wetlands?
Wetlands? I'll pause it.
The wetland, yes, that one, the colored one. You see that blue river that goes, that is the unmarked, undeveloped seasonal streams. That, where house number 8 is going to be, that is the stream that goes through the property and continues through all the neighboring adjacent homes. Then can you bring up the plan where you showed the sidewalk, please?
The site plan right here shows it.
Okay, so this is actually the wrong slide. No, it's not. I'd rather show the clearer one, please.
The one that was...
The one where you were discussing just the sidewalk area.
With the yellow lines?
No? Oh, yeah, maybe that was it. I don't know.
Hold on a second. You're paused, so the clock's not ticking. So I think it was
Okay.
this one?
Yes. So when you were describing 16 feet plus whatever it is feet, that's the old slide to the original plan. That is not showing the sidewalk, the 2 sidewalks. And you can tell that by the entrance. You see the sidewalk go into the road. So that gives false information about how wide it is to 382 Ottawa, how close that road. It's going to be a sidewalk, then a piece of a road, or a slice of grass where you think you're going to be putting in all these berms or trees. This is incorrect. So you passed this on an incorrect slide. And I'm sorry, I have front view center of that intersection. It's a Y. They go 40 miles an hour around that curve, 40. And you said tonight, Ms. Prokis, you had no time to read the emails. You passed this and said yes, with no time whatsoever. And you didn't give us 1 millisecond of reading the emails that we sent. But you passed it. Thanks.
You have to come up. You have to sign in. Sign in.
Just
and
to
please
clarify,
state your name.
this was the drawing that was in the packet, and the additional sidewalk was a condition of approval that was, it wasn't, the sidewalk on the west side wasn't shown in the packet because it was a condition of approval that was required tonight. So the question that was asked by Mr. Faison was the distance from the edge of the street to the property line. And this accurately reflects that, just for the record.
And also, when we were talking about adding trees, it was onto the other side of the sidewalk. It's not between the road and the sidewalk. It's on the west side of the sidewalk to screen from the home. Okay. Yes.
Hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Chris Michael. I live at 72 Booth Road. I know, basically, I'm here saying it's going to go to litigation. We already all know this, and I appreciate everybody and the time that you guys put in this. but how you guys are talking about building. There's a subdivision called Pine, it's a road that's just south of me, so I'm very north of here on the east side of Livernois. There's a subdivision that was put up behind my house, so I have an acre lot. There's 9 parcels that are on that house. I put in a $70,000 pool, in-ground pool, 150 feet back from my house. I had to bring in 120 yards of pea pebble just this past spring to create my own French drain, because the irrigation, how they actually did it, the builders actually did it, we're actually suing the, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it all pitches back to our property and then runs down to there, like how Gary said, that it wasn't a floodplain before. It's because Troy is overbuilding, and now it is a floodplain. So that's the reason when he was saying 6 years ago, it wasn't a floodplain, because it wasn't, because we're overdeveloping in certain areas. And if you actually look off Livernois, and then the Planning Commission will know, because they're out there, because there was a sinkhole in the actual road on Livernois. They actually had to like block it all off. So this is just gonna keep building and including and keep flooding until something's done on a bigger matter. I know people just keep talking about the water, but when I'm out there in July and I'm like, oh, hey, sorry guys, it's gonna take like a couple of days because I have to pump out my pool that's a foot above, because all the water's coming from Livernois coming down and it's flooding everybody out down there. So we get it first and it goes down there, but it's also because they put in an irrigation pond. The city planners already, they're out there. They know what's going on. They see it, they take record of everything. When you see the houses that you're gonna have that are actually the people that you guys approved that building that was going on there here in, I would say maybe a year or 2 years, because they're actually foundations getting washed out right now. Because it was they put too many houses, they didn't pitch it right, they didn't do everything right. And I think that's gonna happen in 5 years. Everybody that from Gary's subdivision that's being built is gonna be sitting in front of you guys too. So, you know, Troy's getting overbuilt. I've lived here since 1982. It's ridiculous. Can't wait to actually move out of Troy because of how many apartments, condos, everything that's going up. It's not like that. It's just become, I don't know, complacent of how many more places can we stick houses and put places. That's it. Where a new building can go up, you know? So I appreciate you guys. You know, thank you very much for the time.
Chris, I didn't see, did you sign in?
Yes, ma'am, I
Thank
did
you.
sign in. Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Yep, it's public comment.
So I'm the gentleman that lives at 875 Ottawa, Peacock and Ottawa Drive.
You signed in already?
I'll sign in.
Yep, please sign in.
875. So, purchased my home back in 2001, and I've been living nothing but a nightmare since then for 23 years. So, I live at Peacock and Ottawa Drive. When that property was developed behind me, I don't know who from civil engineering took and developed it, but there's a 4-foot diameter pipe off of Booth that comes all the way down back Peacock Drive that is not adequately drained back onto Rochester Road, and it floods just like a raging river when we have, you know, maybe a half-inch, 3/4 inch, maybe these 100-year rains. I've been living this nightmare for 21 years, and still to this day, nobody can figure out how to resolve it. So I surely hope for this whole development from the city civil engineering department is on their A game, because whoever developed this stuff, I literally back in 2005, I had Gilligan's Island, my entire property, because the retention basin to my east was filled to the top and overflowed the road. The road, like I said, is a raging river. It's filled to the top. Okay, not just on the bottom, to the top of the curb, okay? I have video of all this stuff. I've been working with Kurt Bobachek, but still we can't get this resolved. And I find this utterly ridiculous that we cannot resolve this problem. It's clearly a problem of just let's release the water back up onto Rochester Road there, but they won't do it. They won't change Peacock. We have Norton to Peacock, and then there's an open culvert there. They have properties on the west side of Norton and Peacock that they want to develop there, and they're supposed to be putting in a retention basin there. But like I said, I surely hope with this development here or whatever goes forward, I've been living the dream and I'm pursuing forward to get this result because I would actually like to leave my property and take a move out of here one day, but I can never sell my property right now the way it is, knowing that my property floods because the guy that sold me the house, Milton Curtis, sold me the property and dinked me. So that's what I have to say. So there are some severe flooding problems in this area here that need to be resolved.
Thank you.
I've already signed in and stuff. I just want to say, there's no
I'm sorry, just.
Frank Schaller. There's no comparison with Peacock Drive in this project. Peacock Drive, they didn't tear a house down. There was nothing there. It was open land. They put a road between two houses. So that you can't compare it to this. And then I challenge any of you to find a layout of how this road is going to be anywhere else in Troy. Streets coming this way, and that way. There's not another one in Troy like this. And 121 cars a day is nothing? Are you kidding? You walk that area or watch the kids ride their bikes and stuff. You tell me 121 cars ain't much.
Good evening. My name is Allison Mowney. I live at 374 Ottawa. I don't need to take a lot of your time tonight. I appreciate you for letting us speak. I do. I just have to say, and I understand we're at a planning meeting, and I'm not against developing. I understand it creates jobs. I'm not even against new people coming in the neighborhood, but to me it has to make sense, and this just doesn't make sense to me. And it's very frustrating to sit here and listen to people be concerned about kids that are moving into that neighborhood and not really concerned about the children that are in the current neighborhood. We live there every day. We know what happens there. And so I would be remiss if I didn't get up and at least say, I wish that maybe we could have presented something that might have change your opinion of this build and this project, but it's going to be very disruptive. And also, someone had mentioned, and maybe it was you, Ms. Malahali, but I don't know if there's been some kind of topographic survey that's been done. I don't know if that's happened, if it's public record, if that's something that your engineers are going to do, if there's going to be specific hydrologic engineers that come out, but that would put me at peace. And it would also be, part of me is wishing that it could kind of be third party, but if it's provided by the city, it is what it is. But just to ensure to us that we aren't going to be underwater, so that our kids want to play in the spring, this summer, there's not a swamp in the yard and they can't go in the backyard, they can't go in the front yard because there's traffic, it's an issue. And so I just want to know that it's going to be addressed. And maybe the solution is put a berm up along where my current tree line is, it's going to be gone. I think there's going to be a couple trees left standing. But maybe do something for the neighborhood where you can ensure to us that that water runoff would be prevented from pooling in our yards. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else coming up, we'll close public comment and we'll move on to our elections. Okay, give me a minute. I just want to make sure we do this the right way. So, oh my gosh, I printed out there. So we're going to start out with the taking nominations from the Planning Commission for, we start with the chairperson, I believe, right? We go down chairperson, vice, and then we'll the zoning board of appeals. Okay, so I'm taking nominations for a chairperson. Mr. Lambert.
I would nominate Ms. Parakis for re-election as chair.
Second.
Seconded?
I'll third it.
Okay. All right, I will accept the nomination. Is there anyone else? Any further nominations?
I will move that we close the ballot and cast a unanimous ballot for Ms. Parakis for chair.
Second.
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 Is that allowed? I mean, is that how that goes? There's this talk about doing a slate.
Right, you can do it either way.
So why don't we take for vice chair, and then we can just pass one resolution for all? I will, okay, any nominations for?
The issue, sorry to interrupt, but the issue is if there are two nominees for vice chair, then you can't do it as a slate.
Right.
So,
So at that, so we see how this goes, and then if there's two, then we'll go back to chair.
that's fine.
Okay, yes.
I would like to nominate Jayalakshmi Malalahali for vice chair.
I will second that.
Yep.
Are there any further nominations for vice chair? Okay, if there are no further nominations,
I accept the nomination.
oh, yeah, sorry, do you accept? Okay. And then finally is the Zoning Board of Appeals representative, who is currently Tyler Fox. Does anyone want to nominate anyone for that position?
It's such a fun time. I'm just,
Mr. Lambert?
I'll nominate Mr. Fox for re-election.
I'll second that.
I accept the nomination.
All right, so that is our slate. We can do a single resolution to elect all the officers. Will someone want to? Go ahead, Mr. Beck.
I guess I just want to say, to the benefit of the other two folks on the slate, I think you both have done a fantastic job in your positions, your leadership positions here on the commission. You definitely are more able to keep your tact than I definitely could say for myself. So it's very appreciated. It's very appreciated.
Thank you for those kind words, and
Thank you.
thank you for your support, all of you. Okay, we still have to vote.
You want to?
Yeah, I think we need to make we're looking for a single resolution to elect all the officers that we just did.
To approve the slate as nominated.
Second.
Ms. Zarnecki, you got that?
Yeah, was it Mr. Kren who seconded?
Mr. Beekner.
Oh, thank you. Okay, yes, I do have it.
Okay, I think we're ready for the roll call.
Okay. Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Ms. Malalahali,
Yes.
Ms. Parakis.
Yes.
Mr. Beekner,
Yes.
Mr. Faison,
Yes.
Mr. Fox.
Yes.
Mr. Hudson,
Yes.
Mr. Kren.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, we are at Planning Commission comment. I'm going to start with Mr. Fox.
Yeah, on the topic of tact, I do think I owe this board an apology for kind of losing what little tact I have during the debacle regarding the length of public comments. So I do apologize for that. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Beekner?
I just have to say go Lions, and that's it.
Okay. Mr. Faison?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Mr. Lambert?
Just congratulations to the re-elected officers, and also congratulations to Mr. Hudson, Mr. Tagle, and yours truly for being reappointed by City Council last night.
Yep.
Excellent.
Ms. Malalahali?
I just have a quick question to ask. When these kind of projects come, and if the residents who feel strongly against it and hire an attorney to speak on their behalf, is there a precedent, or can we write something in our bylaws to say if there is one person who's going to be speaking on behalf of 10, 15, or the whole entire subdivision, that if we get to know about this, that we can accommodate more time to that one individual to be the spokesperson, so that in the future we don't have this kind of an issue?
So I think we tried to address that in our bylaws. I'm not sure that, maybe we need to make a statement at the beginning of the meeting before anyone starts talking that if you're going to consolidate, you need to let us know ahead of time. But we've tried to address it because we do have precedent. A couple of items come to mind, and then tonight. So, yeah, I mean, But everybody has, but it's really hard for me as the attorney to limit anyone who wants to speak. I mean, if they want to speak, they have the right to speak.
But some people speak way too much and go over and over again. I think Mariana explained it to them. They have 3 minutes.
And I think it's also helpful to remind people, we don't need to hear the same thing, from everybody. We get it, But again, due process, open meetings, you have the right to speak. I mean, put yourselves in their shoes. If Ms. Parakis, you were on the other side. I mean, if this board had said, nope, you can't speak, I can only imagine how you would have reacted. So
My concern only stems from the fact that if these residents have hired an attorney and they couldn't be here today for whatever reason, maybe they had a football game that they had to take their kids to, but they had this one person who would be speaking on their behalf, and it was a collective group, and 3 minutes is not sufficient for the voices of 10 to be heard. I just wanted to make sure that we are very transparent, open, impartial, which we always are, but just to make it clear going forward.
So Mr. Lambert, when we did this before, Mr. Lambert had proposed some revisions to the bylaw. So if someone wants to come up with some language for the board to consider, I mean, we can certainly, take a look at our bylaws again and try to make that more transparent. I think it might be a good idea to sort of have a statement that, I think you normally read that 3-minute statement. I don't think we did it tonight. No, we did.
Well, there's no statement. I said everyone has 3 minutes.
Right, I think, didn't we have a statement that you used from, no? Okay, well, maybe we should have a statement.
Okay.
And maybe we should incorporate, if one person's gonna speak on behalf of, 10 people, let that be known at the beginning. So this board is prepared and everybody in the audience understands.
I was just, you guys, you left our bylaws, and I was kind of flipping through because I remember the conversation. I can't see it in here, but I don't remember. Did we decide that we were going to allow people to pool their time, and if so?
I thought we left it to the discretion of the chair.
Yeah, that's how I remembered it. So is it appropriate at the beginning of every meeting for me to offer that up and say, if you want to combine your time, you can? I feel like it only comes up if they were to ask. But then it begs the question, do I need to announce it so they know that they can ask?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, that's a catch-22, but I think there's enough.
Then they start, should we combine?
I think there's enough precedent now, though, over the last several years where people in the community know that we've sort of let that be the way that it's done. So I'm under pressure here. I'm not finding the exact language from the bylaws, but we can certainly figure out a way to make that clearer and have everyone on notice as to what this board is going to follow. Why am I not finding it?
I feel like whatever language we have, though, won't
It's
cover
right. There's always a
every-
different situation.
Exactly. So, Ms. Parakis, I thought you handled it.
You did.
Yeah, it worked out well. Thank you.
That's why we
You
put
let
you in
him
charge.
speak. He didn't even need 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
And then a handful of people spoke in the crowd. Everybody didn't stand up because they were represented. And to Mr. Frank's point, they're here, so we should hear them, right?
Yeah,
As we
yeah.
deliberate.
Absolutely.
I thought you handled it well. And yeah, we can tweak the language, but I think it's the way we handle it that's the
Okay.
most important thing.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that.
So what we did say, sorry, I
Yeah,
am
go ahead.
finding it here, section, under Article 7, Section 5D, we do talk about majority vote of members present. Planning Commission may waive these rules under appropriate circumstances to permit a speaker additional time. So we think that's the language we would need to modify a little bit about what exactly we mean, appropriate circumstances, pooling, be more specific perhaps.
Goes back to what you said earlier tonight about subjectivity, and I think you nailed that. And it's done on purpose that way. And I like it the way it is, in my opinion.
Okay. I mean, this actually requires a vote. It's not my discretion, so, okay. Well, are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay.
Mr. Frank?
As I usually bring up, there's another virtual planners gathering, January 22nd, from 10 to 11 a.m. And again, you can tune in with the Oakland County's website. But the point is, this next gathering is going to discuss Lean and Green in Michigan, basically all about green solutions for planning. and what financing is available to help people with that. So if you want to tune in for an hour, it's on January 22nd, 10 to 11. And as far as this, how many minutes and how many people are going to be represented by one speaker, that really gets into the weeds, because what if the person came up and said, I'm going to represent 400 people? Do we give them 400 minutes? Do we, it becomes a pile of math that is untenable. So anyway, I think the way you handled today was perfect.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hudson?
As an attorney, I'm going to tell you, I didn't expect any special consideration in speaking before any groups if the rules say 3 minutes. Brevity is an art, and I think the studies will show you that when lawyers have a jury trial, if you speak longer than 20 minutes, you have lost 12 people sitting on that jury. A lawyer can figure out the main points he's trying to make. I'll give you an example. My father-in-law, bless his departed heart, had a way of answering a question. He'd say, George, what time is it? He'd spend an hour telling you how that watch was built, retailed, and sold, and then say it's 10 after 1.
Yep.
Don't do that. I mean, you're going to lose me if you keep going on. And I think if they know the ground rules are 3 minutes, and somebody can convincingly tell this commission they need more time and why and how much, that stick with the rule, 3 minutes.
And you make a good point, and I wanted to bring this up too when we talk about people bringing in attorneys. I don't think we should be sending a message as a commission that if you hire an attorney and bring them in, you'll get special treatment, you'll get more time, because it's the wrong message. Homeowners should, or any citizen of Troy should not have to go hire an attorney to earn time in front of the Planning Commission. So I didn't want to give him special treatment because he was an attorney.
I'll give an example. About 40 years ago, I appeared before City Council with a Bel Air subdivision because there was a new subdivision being erected adjacent to them. They wanted to put in 2 roads. We had 60 people in that subdivision. I asked 60 people to appear before City Council. 58 did. I spent 3 minutes telling council why we opposed it and sat down, and 58 people out there was what convinced council, not me.
Yeah, good point. Ms.
I'm
Dufresne?
done.
I've
That took more
talked
than 3
enough
minutes, but I'm
today.
done.
As I usually say, if the attorney has to talk, it's a bad meeting. But Ben has been giving me a hard time about Michigan and Ohio State and Notre Dame, so. Oh, Notre
Oh, yes.
Mr. Savana?
No comment.
Ben? Okay. I just want to say, thank you for reelecting me and putting your trust and supporting me. I appreciate that. I feel like we kind of took a beating tonight. Not a great night. But I struggle with these developments and having a room full of people telling us all of the bad things about Troy. It makes me want to have a joint meeting with City Council, get on the same page. I mean, there's another part of me that wants to say, the city doesn't go around and buy up land to preserve it. I know people don't like that we're building and we keep building, but the only way to stop that is for the city to buy the land and not build on it, that I know of. I mean, unless there's some secret. But it's very difficult when people come and tell us that they want to move out of Troy because they hate it because we keep building. So anyway, but to my point, I think we've said it before, but I'd love to have us, meet with City Council. We haven't done it in a long time. We have a new city manager. I think it would be great to get together and align ourselves. But anyway.
Following up on that, I think that's a great point. And Brent, didn't you talk about an analysis of housing types and things that are being built? And, you shared a snapshot of it, but I thought that was going to be part of a larger discussion. When you showed the projects we developed, the townhomes, the apartments.
Yeah, we suggested, I've mentioned to city management that there's interest in a joint meeting. There's been some challenges in the city manager's office that have been rectified now, so we've got a really solid city manager now, and things are, this is the new normal, so there's a path forward here. So I will remind city management that there's interest from the planning commission to have a joint meeting with one of the potential topics being housing.
Maybe parking also.
Parking, yeah.
There's a lot of things we could add to the list, but.
Thank you for
Before you adjourn the meeting, I'm so sorry to come back, but I meant to update this this body about litigation. So the El Car Wash that was denied, they have sued. And then in terms of an update on one of the cases I'm handling, the Sterling Construction, which is one of Mr. Staffa's projects at Crooks and Waddles, that will have oral argument scheduled in front of Judge Rowe on February, it's either the 7th or the 8th.
Okay. Thanks for the update.
Okay. All right, I am adjourning the meeting.
Good.